Hello and welcome to another episode of Video Game Logic. Today's show was recorded on April the 10th, 2018. I'm your host, Gaming Psychologist, and with me, as always, my favorite delivery boy,
Caffeine Rage. I'm not sure how to feel about this. Are we on a porno?
Yes. On today's show, we will of course be discussing the games that we've played this week. The PUBG Corporation files a lawsuit against NetEase for alleged copyright infringement. GTA 5 is the most profitable entertainment product of all time. Maybe? Is the year of the loot box dead? Marvel's Spider-Man will let you unlock pre-order suits in-game, and we'll have our weekly Discovery queue. Timestamps will be in the show notes following their respective topics. Hello, Rage.
Hello. So where did the delivery boy come in? Is this a Trump reference?
No, it's Pizza Titan Ultra.
Oh.
It's a very loose connection, but you played it last week, I played it this week.
We both fisted some buildings.
Yeah, we did. Fisted those buildings. Sexy buildings.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, that's where that came from.
I was wondering where that came from because, that's weird even for you.
Yep. So how are you doing?
I'm
Fine,
doing
sir.
all right. It was a rough weekend just because doctor's visit, just an exam. And that threw off my sleep cycle, and my back was aching because, a lot of movement. So, yeah, it was an annoying weekend. It was pretty much a wasted Friday as well. So, yeah, doctor way overbooked. I was there for 3.5 hours for a 15-minute, 20-minute, checkup. So,
Right.
That's why I was texting you, bored.
Yeah, and I was pretty busy on Friday.
So you didn't have time to entertain me.
No. I, too, had a weekend. My son's 4th birthday was this weekend. His party was on Saturday. And my in-laws were here for 5 days. 5 days, really. Today doesn't count because they left at 9:30 this morning to go catch their plane. So they were here for 5 full days. And I have good in-laws, but 5 days with extra people crammed in your house when there's a ton of stuff going on, that it's not just like, hey, let's go hang out and do stuff together as family and friends. It can get annoying. Plus, even though I have good in-laws, they're not perfect people. And that's all I'll say about that.
Oh, my.
Because I told you a little bit of some of the things that got on my nerves. But I'm not going to bring that up here. But it was a good weekend overall. Just we were really busy. I did go fishing, like actual real fishing was that yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday. I went fishing yesterday. We didn't catch anything but sticks.
See, I prefer just to catch a salad,
Yeah, which is fine. My kid has been asking to go fishing, and he got like a kid's fishing pole from my parents for his birthday, and we got like some cheap fishing poles from like Walmart to go and fish with him, and he had a blast just trying to cast, but ultimately just like splashing in the water and.
Gee, I wonder why you didn't catch anything.
Yeah. So if there were any fish where we went, they were all scared away by the time we even started fishing. I used to fish a lot when I was a kid. My dad had a fishing boat and we would go like every weekend, but around the time of 13 or 14, I just didn't want to go anymore. I find fishing very boring.
Well, to be fair, we have electronics now, so,
That's true. It's very true. I can fish on my phone.
Well,
really.
I was talking about,
go
some the lakeside and watch Twitch or something.
Yeah, fishing for me would be a podcasting activity, but because you just sit there and like cast your line every once in a while, and if you catch something, great. But I have so many other podcasting activities at home, and I would have to leave my home to go fishing. And everyone knows that I'm a hermit.
No, you're a turtle.
I don't like leaving my house. But turtles like water.
Okay, then you're a tortoise.
Whatever works, I guess.
Yes.
My point is, I hate leaving the house.
You curl up in your shell, and you have a sign on that says it to go away, and that's it.
Yeah. So I hate leaving my house, so there's no point in me going fishing. I'll just play video games and listen to podcasts.
Well, there are fishing video games.
There are, but I don't really find fishing video games very fun either.
It depends on the video game. Because spearfishing and Warframe's fun, but that's spearfishing.
I saw a really nifty GIF on. I don't know why it was a GIF instead of a link to a YouTube video, but it was. It was like a 45-second GIF of someone bow fishing. That was pretty cool. I've never seen that before.
Well, you did find fishing in Torchlight enjoyable.
Yeah, because you could throw a stick of dynamite in the fishing hole. One and done. Can't you? I mean, you could do that in real life, but if...
Yeah, but the feds frown upon that practice.
Yeah. So anyways...
besides, you just drop some electrodes in the water and you zap the little suckers. There's no earth-shattering kaboom to draw attention. And
Indeed.
Now we're being protested by PETA.
Yeah, well, fuck PETA.
No thanks. I prefer to keep my dick out of crazy.
PETA's made some really shitty video games. And that's not an attempt at an on the nose segue. Like, PETA really has made some really shitty video games.
What, the one about Pokemon fighting?
That's one of the worst ones.
Or the Cooking Mama ripoff?
The Cooking Mama ripoff is the one that usually springs to mind first.
What about Tofu Boy?
Oh, yeah. I love how that Super Meat Boy made fun of Tofu Boy.
Yeah. The fact that they put him in the game to begin with, and he's by far the worst character.
The worst character, yeah. He can barely complete the easiest levels.
No. There's 2 levels that he can complete total in the entire game.
Oh. I don't know enough about Super Meat Boy to have known that. I just know that there was most of the levels he couldn't complete.
Easy version of Super Meat Boy. Because it's it has the light world and then the dark world, which is significantly harder. I beat the light world, and to unlock the dark world, you have to, if I recall correctly, you have to, it's either get the bandages on all the levels, which unlocks the dark version, or you have to beat a particular time. I think it's actually the time. So you have to hit essentially a par timer, and some of them are just insane. But then again, it's Super Meat Boy. But really fun game. Very frustrating, but it's that moment of getting through and beating a very tough level that has that release,
Yeah, not a game that I like, but I recognize that it is a good game and just not something that I'm all about. So.
Well, speaking of good games.
Indeed, speaking of good games, what games did you play this week, Rach?
Well, I've got 4 on the docket this time around. First up is Gauntlet Slayer Edition. This was one that I played with Ghost Shark and Cube Friday night for a couple hours. A co-op dungeon crawler. And it was a lot of fun. I never really got to play Gauntlet back in the day. And I know, back in the day, I'm making Ghost Shark feel old.
Back in my day,
we had to pay a quarter to play Gauntlet. But a Gauntlet is a dungeon crawling hack and slash co-op game. It does have a single player mode, but you could tell that the focus of it is on the competitive co-op, because it's not quite full co-op where you can dick over your allies. There's the ability to, for example, shoot the food, which is the healing items in the game, to deny food if you really want to be a dick. Or there's this semi-competitive version of just collecting all the gold. And the gold is what enables you to get additional power-ups to progress your character. And there's 4 characters, I think, at the start, with a DLC for a 5th character available. Each of them have their own strengths and weaknesses. The warrior is a lot tankier, but I don't think he does as much damage. But all the characters have their different unlocks, which gives different playstyles a little bit more movement based. For example, for one power, it may be giving a proper shield dash to the Valkyrie, which is what I was playing, or a just throw the shield Captain American style, which is the default weapon, which is actually very powerful and also somewhat of a double-edged sword because it'll chain. But I found that it could also chain to food if you're not careful. And there's also some puzzle elements, which was interesting, particularly in the boss fights. Having to figure out what to do on the fly. For example, one of the bosses, it's completely invulnerable, but it'll pretty much one-shot anyone that it gets close to, and it moves rather slowly. But there's 2 buttons on the ground, so we eventually figured out stand on the buttons, and this giant turntable in the middle will slowly spin up to draw the heart out of the boss to be able to do damage to it directly. And until then, it's just, hack away at everything else. Not really a lot to talk about here, just because it is more of a co-op focused game. And if you don't have anyone available to play, it's... I shouldn't say less fun, because the single player is essentially a roguelite. And actually the main mode is as well, where it has the chunk-based generation that most roguelites run through. Which at first I wasn't sure if it was using procedural generation, but it seems that it is. Which each level has pretty much its set design that it has to have certain elements of, but then the connections are procedural. And they throw in a lot of interesting twists. For example, one element that we hit a couple times was on one level, death will be following you. The Grim Reaper. And you get close to the Grim Reaper, and he'll cost you a life quite quickly. And you run away for a bit, then he sinks back down to the ground, and then you have to essentially speed run the level. But certain rooms will lock if you don't have everything killed. So it's a race against the clock, but also trying to dance around all the enemies and death. But a lot of fun.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah,
I was gonna play, but then I got roped into playing Rummy Friday night and got my ass kicked by my mother-in-law. So
yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else. The continue system is interesting. It plays off sort of the old just pop in another quarter, because you start as you kill enemies, a meter builds up, and once you get the full meter, you're essentially given an extra life, a skull coin. And for each skull coin you have in the pocket, the meter gets harder and harder to fill. Not impossible, but you usually only have a couple available. And the idea of it is that if you lose one character, you can easily rebuild that meter. But if you start losing a lot of characters at once, it's going to be a lot more difficult. It's a very interesting balancing system. And because some of the characters are a lot more squishier than others, you definitely start to see, for one, who's able to play their character better. Because, for example, the elf is the weakest health-wise, at least out of the 3 that we had in our team. We had the Valkyrie, the warrior, and the elf, which the elf is a range class, archer. Yeah, it's an elf. Of course it's an archer, right?
Yeah.
So, the elf has to try to stay out of trouble, while the Valkyrie is sort of in the middle, but also has a ranged attack by throwing the shield. And then there's also, a secondary ability that you could unlock with an amount of gold, but that is a general ability. So, you could get it where you could turn the tables on your friends. You turn nearby food and potions into additional gold for leveling up quicker. But, then you may piss off your friends. Or you could get summons. You could turn your party invincible for a few seconds. And it really requires a lot of teamwork. And there was a few times that, someone died and I accidentally walked over the gold and ended up being the greediest player. And that's what they actually call it at the end of the level. The person that has the most gold.
Nice.
But yeah, a lot of fun. I would say that it's a lot better with 3 or 4 people, though. I'm not sure if it would be a good duo game. It's definitely doable, but it would be a lot tougher. It feels like it's balanced around having 3 or 4 players.
Yeah. I've played the old Gauntlet, not in an arcade. It was...
Yeah, it was on the NES as well. I remember playing it a little bit, but I never really got far in it because it was more built around at least 2 players, but more the multi-tap. Remember the multi-tap?
Yes, just barely. I played it on Xbox 360 because it came to the Xbox Live Arcade back then, like in the mid to late 2000s. And I played it, but I never had anyone to play with. I just played it by myself, and it's not a great solo game.
Yeah, I would say this is the same thing. It's a good game, but it's more co-op focused. And I think this has a local co-op. Yeah, it says it has a local co-op, so yeah, it'd be a good party game because the levels are fairly quick. I would say 10 minutes, 15 minutes tops.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put it on my wish list. I previously had it marked as not interested, but I think I'll put it on my wish list, and next time it's cheap, I'll pick up a copy.
It'd be a good, it would be a good stream night game.
Yeah, next time it's cheap, I might actually pick up a bundle or one of the 4-packs.
Yeah.
And distribute some more copies to people in our group. All right, cool. What else did you play?
Okay, well, even though I was too tired to do the Sunday Sampler, I at least attempted it. And I got some playtime with Double Kick Heroes before it released. And it proved the point that I am not the person to try to do a rhythm game in general. But this one, it's a rhythm / shoot 'em up. And it's essentially, like trying to jump on one leg, rub your belly, pat your head, and chew gum at the same time because there's a lot to balance. And it wasn't for me. I could definitely see that it was a fairly good game, even though it doesn't really have any reviews I could see. It is in early access, though, so... Oh, it hasn't released yet. It releases tomorrow. I thought it released today, so... Oh, and mic hit. Double Kick Heroes is... Well, like I said, it's a rhythm game meets twin-stick... not twin-stick shooter, but 2D shooter, where you're controlling a band who has hooked all their guns on their car in this zombie apocalypse to their instruments. And the idea is that you have to play your instruments while driving your car and killing everything that's trying to catch you. And this is based off of metal music as well. And I absolutely loved the soundtrack. I thought it was a really good soundtrack. And, well, to give you an idea of how things are in this game, you pretty much immediately meet a character who is in no way Marilyn Manson. It's Bedrian Branson or something. Totally not Marilyn Manson.
Right. Absolutely not.
And, well, I just didn't get far into it partly because I'm not really skilled at rhythm games. And there's a couple quirks in this that are a little strange. They do just slowly ramp up things. You have two triggers on your guns, essentially the bottom and top guns on your car, facing backwards. And those are independent triggers. And it took me a while to really understand that there was a reload time on your guns. So, trying to hit these notes that are very close together, I wasn't understanding why I was failing on them. You could see on some of the screenshots, some rather rapid fire notes on there. Yeah. I wasn't understanding why I was missing them, because I would eventually start missing notes, and if you start missing too many, it penalizes you, saying that you're spamming the buttons, or you miss too many notes and your guns overheat, which locks down your guns for a few seconds, and pretty much that's a life. Because they do throw a lot of enemies at you. Well, I figured out, because of that reload, if there's notes together, you have to hit both triggers at the same time and essentially fire, two guns at once. And because it doesn't really indicate that on the rhythm bar, it was something that I didn't really catch at first. And also, they start throwing in more things, like having to steer the car to be able to line up shots. And it's a lot of watching the notes incoming, or triggers incoming, I guess is the proper term, because you're more hitting triggers on the beat instead of playing actual notes, a la Guitar Hero or something. And then they start throwing other things, like you could see on the screenshots, there's a cannon as well that you eventually unlock. I didn't get that far because I was starting to have trouble controlling the car, hitting all the notes, and then also be able to hit all the triggers at the same time, because there's a lot of going back and forth, and there's a lot of things to pay attention to. Plus, I was feeling rather tired at this point. But something else that's kind of interesting is that they have a built-in editor. Actually, a fairly decent editor to be able to make your own soundtracks as well, or own tracks for the game, which I actually really enjoyed.
That's fancy.
Yeah, you don't usually see that on these.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be a lot of garbage, but...
Yeah, usually it's some sort or the third-party thing, if there's one available at all. But the fact that it's built right in the game itself already is rather nice. And I was also having some recording issues with this as well. It may just be because I had a pre-release copy to try out, but it wasn't wanting to do a full 1080p for me. It was doing a stretched 720p, so it made the pixel art rather ugly. But even the screenshots on Steam are at 720p, so that may be, just how it is. And, that's the max resolution, at least for now. But it made it so that the animations weren't very smooth. Everything looked a little jank. Outside of the notes, thankfully, because that seemed to be perfectly fine. Scaled up, but it was just making it not quite as smooth or as pretty as it should be,
Yeah.
So that's definitely a down point. But if you like your rhythm games and you want something very different and you like metal, well, here you go.
Yeah, I put this on my wish list. I like the in the screenshots, like the shark and the dinosaur. Yeah,
they throw some really weird shit at you. I mean, very quickly, I might add. I mean, a dinosaur with mouths all over it.
Yeah. But that's weird and cool.
But you can see how even the screenshots on Steam are 720p. And there's also an interesting combo meter, which was part of the reason why I was having problems, was that as you hit your beat over and over again, you start building up your guns. And you start off with a little dinky, essentially pistols, for lack of a better term. And as you hit that combo meter, it ramps up the damage more and more and more. But once you start missing notes, that starts going down very quickly. So it really punishes you if you start missing notes, on top of the overheat mechanic for, hitting buttons that aren't available. Hitting the triggers when they're not available. So it's one of those games that you definitely need to sit down and spend some time with, and not really master, but get confident at. And that wasn't something I was in the mood for. I can definitely see why people would like it, though.
Yeah. I like the look of it.
Yeah, and it has a rather kick-ass
put it on my wish
soundtrack.
list. I also just went on Keymailer and requested a key, because if I could get it for free, why not?
Yeah.
But, yeah, if it's cheap enough, I'll buy it after BattleTech. I'm not buying any games until BattleTech comes out. I can't spend all of my Steam money.
Well, I've been selling my TF2 stuff. I've been cashing out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you want TF2 stuff, well, I got a bunch of it on the marketplace. But since we're talking about rather kick-ass soundtracks, I also went back and played some Cuphead this week. And Cuphead, it is still so satisfying to play, particularly whenever you go in, you start playing on a boss that you were having trouble with, and then you beat it your third attempt. Which is what I had this time. I was stuck on the dragon, actually.
Yeah, we're still stuck on the dragon. Katie and I played some Cuphead this past week also, and we're still stuck on the damn dragon.
Well, for me, I found it was a lot easier once I changed up my loadout.
Yeah.
What loadout are you running?
I don't have the one that shoots behind you, and I don't have any coins. Oh, you don't? Okay, I've been using the regular pea shooter and the shotgun.
Okay, well,
the spread shot.
Okay, here is what I used for Grim Matchstick. I used the lob shot, and then I used the charge shot. For all but the last phase, I just used the lob shot because it's very powerful. And whenever he goes to that phase where he's just on the bottom of the screen, I get ahead a little bit, then I turn around and start pelting him. But for the last phase, I switched to the charge shot because, well, I was doing the normal mode, which gives you the soul contract. Which, honestly, I don't really see the point of playing the bosses in easy mode. Because you're going to have to go back for them anyway.
Yeah, maybe to just train, like, if you keep getting stuck, do the easy mode so you can get through the whole thing and see what all the phases are.
Well, that doesn't even work because sometimes the bosses have missing a phase or something.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, for the last phase, when, he goes all Hydra on you, I go to charge shot because whenever he starts shooting all the stuff at you, all the fireballs and everything, if you hit them in flight, they split into multiple projectiles. The charge shot allows me to do a lot of damage to him, but only have a couple shots in the air at once, at most. Usually just one shot, though. So it's more minimizing and focusing on the platforming.
Yeah. I have the lob shot. I don't have the charge shot, I don't think.
Well, the charge shot, I don't think it's a mandatory thing. It just makes it a lot easier. Let's put it this way. I went through, I 3-shotted him, and I did a perfect on him.
Nice.
And then I got a C rating because I didn't do enough slap attacks, hit the pink things.
Yeah. I can regularly get to the third phase, but I always get killed. Phase? Yeah, whenever he goes Hydra.
Yeah, there's actually a second, mini phase in the beginning where he starts... technically, he has 4 phases where he just shoots fireballs at you, then he starts using his tail. Then he has the Parade of Fire, and then he goes Hydra.
Yeah. Yeah, the Parade of Fire was difficult for a little bit, but then I figured out the pattern, just got it into muscle memory.
Well, it's not so much the pattern, it's more watching what direction the flames face. Because, for those who don't know and what we're talking about in general, Cuphead is essentially a run and gun platformer, but it's mostly a boss attack game, actually. You usually are fighting bosses, and I would say that the game is best when you're fighting the bosses and not the run and gun stages.
The run and gun stages kind of suck.
I would say they're decent, but they're obviously not where the game was focused, and it feels like they're tacked on mostly because I think they were.
Yeah, it was originally basically just a boss rush game, and then they added the run and guns after there were complaints from
not
some
complaints.
early
I'm not sure if it was complaints. It was more, okay, what else?
Yeah.
But Grim Matchstick is, well, it's not the last boss because there's a lot of choice where you can fight and who you fight in order, but he's a dragon on the second of 4 worlds, and he's considered one of the hardest bosses in the game, just because there's so much shit. And in the first phase, he's shooting fireballs, which had one of 3 possible patterns, either a upper pattern, a lower pattern, or both at once. What dash ability do you use?
The one that makes you invisible.
The smoke screen. Yeah, that's why I use it as well. It's pretty much a requirement for Grim Matchstick. But then he goes to a second phase where it's the same as the first, but he starts trying to hit you with his tail as well from the bottom of the screen, and he has this little warbling sound. Then he flies off and comes to the bottom of the screen and sticks out his tongue, and all these fireballs start coming out. And the secret to that phase is watching what direction they face, whatever you hear them going, hey! Because that's the tell of what direction they're going to jump at you, or if they're jumping at you at all. But that last phase is just crazy. My last boss on the second world is the bird.
Yeah, we haven't been able to beat the bird either.
I'm so close to it. It's just I haven't had enough time in the last phase, but Cuphead is just one of those games that you bash your head against the wall, but when you finally beat the level, that there's that release of endorphins, that big, did it.
Yeah.
Which is, I would have to say, beating a difficult boss in Cuphead is one of the most satisfying feelings I've gotten in video games for a long time.
It's definitely up there.
Only thing that I think could really top it recently, and I'm talking recently as in the last 5 years or so, is doing a successful docking in Kerbal Space Program.
That was definitely incredibly satisfying too, the first time I pulled it off.
Speaking of which, Kerbal's on the Humble Monthly.
Yeah,
that's a weird combination, isn't it?
I'll probably be skipping this month too.
Well, you don't want to buy Kerbal all over again?
Yeah, no, I'm good. I bought it once. I don't need it again.
Yeah, it's Kerbal. What else was it?
Dead Rising 4 and
which I have.
Something else. I'm going to look right now. Ruiner.
So, yeah. Completely off topic, though. But,
yeah.
Very satisfying gameplay. I would have to say that I'm probably going to be picking up the soundtrack for Cuphead when it goes on sale. On discount, I should say. Not, being available, because it is available. But I'm cheap.
Yeah.
But, the soundtrack for Cuphead's so good, huh?
It is very good. Very good indeed.
But you want me to move along, don't you?
I do. I want you to tell me about your next game, because I've had my eye on it for a little bit now.
Yeah, this is a strange one, because and the part of the reason why I kept Cuphead on my list, by the way. And you're wondering, how the hell is that connection working? Well, while I was playing Cuphead, I had Amy contact me and drop me this game, just out of the blue.
Uh-huh.
So I spent about 4 hours on it, and I have thoughts about it.
Okay.
I like it, but I went into this more thinking it was going to be, Railroad Tycoon, a pseudo business management game. It's not. It's not even close. Not saying that's a bad game. It's going to be sort of by how I felt about City Skylines for a long time, where I thought it was a decent game, but it's the same thing here. This is more, I would say, pseudo sandbox with, they say it right on the tin, with essentially tabletop rules, because it deals a lot in tokens and not money. So the idea of this game is that you are dealing with a procedurally generated map, and you have to balance. There is a pseudo management thing here going on with having to balance making money while expanding out your empire. But it's a kind of a lonesome game where you don't really have any competition. It's just you doing your own thing. That's not a bad thing. It's just not quite what I was expecting.
That sounds great. I prefer that. I prefer not having any competition, just doing my own thing at my own pace. It's one of the reasons I like Transport and Train Fever so much, is that they're solo games.
Okay, well, you'll really like this then. Because this is really you doing your own thing. You do have to try to make some money, and to do that, you have to run a passenger line. And this is all depending on the map you get on where you set up originally, because you want to find essentially 2 or 3 towns that are nice clustered together to run passengers between. And as you do that and generate your money tokens, you could then branch out. And there's a couple of interesting things here where there's a sort of a supply chain that you have to deal with. Because in order to get research to get to the next stage or the next era early, which there's only 3 of the 7 available right now, you have to fulfill quests, which are also procedurally generated and can pop up at pretty much any time, and also add additional resources to the map. So, for example, to get from the first stage to the second, from the first era to the second era early, you have to get coal tokens by taking coal to a tool shop and taking logs to a sawmill, and taking the worked logs, the planks, to the tool shop. And it requires a bit of management to be able to do that properly, because all the trains, all the railroads are single wide only. There's no double rails. So you have to be very careful on, one, how you set up your rails, and also your orders for each individual train, because trains can run into each other, much like how Gomez Adams used to run his trains into one another, rather explosively. Yes, I made an Addams Family reference.
Well done.
Which, considering the trailer for this game shows a kid playing with a train set, which that's what it feels like, actually. It feels like sitting down with a model railroad and planning out a pseudo-imaginary world because of the procedural generation. I will say that the game doesn't run quite as smoothly as I would like. I mean, it's still doable for my system, but there was a weird level of detail thing going on where close up it ran really well, far away it ran fairly well, but in a middle range where the level of detail is shifting between the low poly and the high poly models, the frame rate just tanked for me. I'm not sure if it's just my system or what, but it's just weird.
Yeah.
But my big bugbear with this game is laying rails. It's not a bad thing, but you may look at the screenshots of this game and think, well, the terrain looks rather flat, right? I mean, not very hilly, right?
Yeah.
You would be wrong. The game treats the Z levels of this game very shallowly, where even though there's a slight incline, you have to essentially approach it at 90 degrees. You can't do a diagonal against it without doing some terrain manipulation, which thankfully you could do, but it's very expensive to do. So it's a weird trying to deal with a slope when you look at realistic view and it doesn't really look like there's that much of a slope there. I realize that, that sounds very, very weird. But it's just, if you're playing without the strategic view, which they show on just actually 2 of the screenshots on here, the grid, it's very tough to tell where slopes are, which could make trying to plan your routes a lot more bothersome than need be. Not impossible, but if you're trying to run a particular route and you're betting on being able to run a train through a particular area, You may be finding that be a little bit more expensive than what you actually intend. That's my biggest problem with the game is just how they handle the slopes. If the game had a lot higher Z levels where there's a bigger elevation change between one level and another, where it made a lot more sense that you couldn't run a diagonal rail, then I would have no problems with it. But because of that, it's a little bit troublesome,
Yeah. Do you have to gameplay question? Do you have to pay maintenance fees on your trains and tracks and stuff?
Engines only, at least up through the second era. That's as far as I got in my time.
Okay.
The maintenance is on engines only, and depending on the particular engine, it's different resources. For example, starting off, you have a choice of 3 engines, essentially a cheap one, an expensive one, and one that uses... I'm not sure what the resources are. There's not a lot of tooltips in this game yet. So mounting over, it's a little tough to tell exactly what it is. I'm just going to call it gold because it's a gold icon, but I don't think it's gold. Because I'm pretty sure it's just supposed to be tools, but oh well. But you could buy a train with those. I don't think the gold one has a upkeep, but then later on you could get a train that from the coal icons, the coal tokens, and that uses the coal tokens as its upkeep. So instead of burning your money that you're getting from the passengers and later on mail, because as you progress through the eras, more industries pop up as well. So the first era, you have timber, you have coal, and you have passengers. That's the resources. You run coal to the different to the tool shop, and you run timber to the sawmill, and the lumber from the sawmill to the tool shop to upgrade. Well, once you progress to the second era, iron mines show up, post offices show up to run mail between towns, and you could only run mail from one postal office to another, but that is also a source of money tokens. So there's more to do, and it causes you to just sit down and rethink your routes. So I do like that aspect. And I imagine
I like that too.
And I imagine going to the third era, there'll be more icons showing up as well. It's just I hadn't gotten there yet. And as you progress, or as you play, there's also there's timed quests that show up. For example, a forest near one of the coal mines out was working. Suddenly popped up a quest saying that the person that owned it is wanting to sell off a bunch of lumber because of a storm that hit the area, and he wants to haul 1,000 logs in the next 10 years. Then there was a thing where the sawmills were bitching because I wasn't hauling enough lumber because I was focusing on passengers to be able to build up my money to do a mass expansion, because that's what the rails cost, is the money tokens. So they wanted me to haul more lumber to them, and a quest popped up saying that if I haul enough lumber to them in a year, they'll give me a big bonus. The progression to the next era is either just time advancing, or fulfilling a request there. And those could pop up at any time and really change things up. And I do like how you could set up your rails. I dislike the rail laying system, just because of the Z levels not being that apparent. But I do like the order system on the trains, where you could tell them, you could set a particular series of stations, and you could also set waypoints on your tracks. So let's say you want them to go around a particular loop, you could set proper waypoints for them to follow. Granted, the AI isn't 100% yet, and I have gotten them confused a few times. There will be an obvious route, but they wouldn't want to take it without a couple waypoints to be able to steer them. But that's early access. And also, I would say that the signal system is done rather nicely. It's very intuitive and very easy to do. Essentially, you put down signals and it portions off the rails into segments. And there's at least up to the second era. There may be more later on. There's two types of signals. There's one that is just, is there a train in this area? Let's say you have a circular track and you put down two rails at like the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock positions. If a train is in, from 6 to 12, going clockwise, of course, it won't allow a train to go into that half of the circle until that train leaves the circle. All right? Or it leaves that half. The second type of signal looks at each of the segments and then will say, is there a place a train could go if they enter it? It allows the AI to try to avoid the collisions. Granted, sometimes with less than spectacular results, but as the AI improves, that will be a lot more useful, I believe.
Yeah, the first one you talked about is pretty standard for all of these games because it uses the blocking system.
Yeah, and you could also set
the rails.
You can also set the signals to be one way.
Yeah.
So it will always deny trains going in a particular direction, and that will cause the routing system to try to avoid that. Granted, I did get a couple times where trains would just be nose to one another because one tried to path a direction that I wasn't intending, or it did some sort of weird thing where it was blocked off from a particular route by a signal, so it tried to route around it, and it was using my service rails to go around because I was trying to do a pseudo-realistic where I was limiting my number of depots. All the trains spawn from depots, and I was trying to do like a central area, and then it branches out. But because of that, I was having trains trying to use the service rails that were supposed to be one-time use, but I didn't want to tear them up because in case I had to redo the train or I wanted to upgrade the train, I wanted a way to get them back. But eventually, I just started putting down more depots and saying screw it and doing essentially segmented rail systems where they're this is the section that's servicing this coal mine, this lumber mill, and this tool shop. And it's serviced by this one depot, and it's completely isolated from the rest of the system. Not what I wanted to do, but the routing system wasn't quite there to be able to do a fully integrated system, at least yet. Or I could just be terrible at my management, which is very possible.
Yeah, this sounds like it's about on the same level as Train Fever. Transport Fever fixed a lot of those problems with the pathing.
Well, this is also early access,
stuff.
though.
Yeah.
Well, I did mention that this has terraforming in it. It's using the old SimCity style where the world is in a grid, and to raise and lower the terrain, you're raising and lower each corner of that grid. And if you have a too steep angle, let's say, a mountainside, for example, it'll generate a rock tile, which is impassable, and you have to rearrange things. And it's a little tough to be able to tell exactly when a rock tile will be generated. Granted, I'm still fairly new with the game, so that may just be the fact that I'm inexperienced with it yet. But it makes it so that you can set up your slopes a lot easier. So I do like that. It makes it so that they don't have to have dedicated tools for slopes, for example. But it was kind of this is like how SimCity 4 used to do it. Or going even further back, SimCity 2000. So did I...
Well, all of this sounds good.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I sold you in the game or chased you off from the game.
No, I've been following its development for a little while now. If it ever goes on sale, I'll buy it. I've had a request for it on Keymailer for forever.
Yeah, I was a little
and I even tried contacting them.
To me. Honestly, I think she got us confused because she said it was for a nice guy.
But I've even contacted them directly, but it's either a one-man show or a small dev team.
It was originally a one-man show, but they've expanded to a small dev team after going on Steam.
Gotcha. By the way, Mashinki is Russian for machines.
Okay, I wasn't sure what the translation was, and if it meant something.
I wasn't either. I looked it up while you were talking because I was curious, and I never really thought about it. But I saw the dev's name, and I was like, I think that's a Russian name. Let me pop this into Google Translate and see if it means anything.
Yeah, overall, it's not a bad little game. There's some quirks about it, like stations are a little strange because they only serve a small area around them, but also each tile of the station could only serve one car for that tile, and it doesn't really go into that in the tutorial. The tutorial is still rather bare bones. So for a while, I was trying to set up a route where my train would take lumber from the forest, take it to the sawmill, and then it had a lumber car on it, which would take lumber to a central station and dump it off there for another train to be able to carry everything around. Well, I wasn't getting it to load the lumber properly, and it took me a while to realize, it needs more station tiles. And also there's an extension system for the stations that wasn't really touched on at all, where you could build up the stations to have a more a larger area by adding restaurants or waiting rooms, which costs different resources depending on the particular tile or particular upgrade. You could set it up where they have a bigger hopper. Let's say you could have it where a station will hold more coal, and on each turn, for lack of a better term, each tick as time progresses, the resources around the station will dump resources into the station at a particular rate. Like a town will generate so many passengers based on the number of tiles that the station covers in that town. So a town that has a odd distribution of buildings may require a station in a very particular spot, or a longer station than absolutely necessary to be able to cover enough tiles. And that's also for passengers how the money system is generated, because it's a passenger per house or church or whatever that's covered by that station. So it's a little finicky, but it's workable. It's just not a full town until you start upgrading. I just wish that there were double rails. That would solve a lot of the pathing issues, actually. Maybe there would be in later eras, but not right now. But then again, because this is potentially, just a kid imagining, this, it may not have double rails, which would be a little bit of an annoyance, but not a deal breaker. Overall, though, I did like the game.
Sweet. Well, I look forward to checking it out eventually, either if I manage to get a review copy or buy it whenever it goes on
Block
sale.
me on the head and
the next time I have some extra.
And steal my Steam account.
Yeah, why not? That'd work too. Alrighty. Well, now on to my games. I technically have 6, but most of them are pretty short. The first one up is Pizza Titan Ultra. So you talked about this last week. In case anybody missed the episode last week, this is a sort of crazy taxi type game, except you're delivering pizzas in a 10-story mech. And it's got a really bright, cartoony, cel-shaded art style. The game is all about sort of silliness and satire. There are many references to many things in the game.
How far did you get?
Not too far. I only played it for about an hour.
Well, it is
I
a
did
short
the tutorial in the first area. And then I stopped. But I like all the reference stuff. I spent some time just going through looking at all of the different mecha parts to try and find or, place all the references. And, there's one that's clearly an Optimus Prime, and there's one that's clearly Gundam stuff. And,
there's like 2 or 3 Gundams.
Yeah, there's a couple of Gundams. And some others. There's a steampunk aesthetic, which is pretty neat. But yeah, I mean, the game is a lot of fun. It's something that would be good for me to pick up and play whenever I just have a little bit of time, but I want to play a game on my PC as opposed to a game on my phone, and that's probably how I'll play it. Did you use controller or keyboard and mouse?
I used controller, actually.
Okay, I did too. I also used a controller. This is a really good controller game. I would assume it plays fine keyboard and mouse, but yeah, I played it using a controller because that felt right for the type of game that this is.
Yeah, so did you see what I meant by sometimes the perspective is a little off if you're trying to do platforming?
Yeah, it can sometimes be difficult to tell exactly how high something is and whether or not you need to find something else to jump 2 levels or jump 1. And sometimes it's difficult to tell at what level
and also
flying enemies are at.
And also your jetpack is kind of a hover, not a prepper jetpack.
Yeah. I didn't find any major problems with this game in any way. Like, I have a few nitpicky things, like what I just said. Sometimes it's difficult to tell what height flying enemies are at, and it's annoying whenever they yell at you for destroying stuff in the city, and it's like, well, I mean, if I get within, like, 10 feet of one of these houses, they just sort of fall over.
Well,
but I mean, that's really nitpicky stuff.
Second area, you have to avoid damaging stuff. But I kept failing because the enemies would damage things.
Yeah, that's really frustrating that you can fail because the enemies damage stuff. Because they don't care. They just shoot and smash into stuff and fly around. And more than once, I would accidentally destroy stuff while I was fighting them. Because, like, the ground attack... maybe I'm doing it wrong, or if I just haven't quite figured out yet, like, how long you have to hold a button or what speed you have to be moving at. But sometimes you'll, like, do a ground smash and destroy a bunch of stuff in an area around you,
that's
and
the
sometimes you'll just, like,
ability.
kick.
If you're moving, you'll do a slide, kind of just taking out the legs.
And if you're standing still, you do a stomp?
Yeah, and it's all based on your speedometer in the upper left-hand corner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the game actually has a lot of weight on its movement, but as a good thing. It makes it feel like you're controlling this giant mech and not just a character that just happens to be in a city, you know?
Yeah, it's a good balance between being really quick and agile, but also feeling beefy. Because there is a little... It takes it a minute to turn.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not a minute, but it takes it a couple of seconds to turn, as opposed to just immediately spinning around or turning around.
Yeah, particularly if you're going at a good clip. Or if you're using the sprint ability, you are not turning.
Yeah, no. You're going in a straight line. I like the little mini game too. Like, you'll find some, just randomly people.
Yeah, I only found that
hanging out
really
with
in
a
the
pizza
first
icon over their
level.
head.
I'm not sure if it's just I missed them on the later levels or they're not in this build because this game doesn't release till the end of the month. So this is a very early access. Well, not early access, but early preview copy.
Yeah, but I like the mini game.
Yeah.
Just placing the pizza toppings and then baking it and then cutting it. I mean, it takes like, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds, but it just feels right. It's hard to describe, but it's like you're running around in this giant mech and it's like, oh, pizza. I'm going to make a pizza. And like real quick, just make a pizza, get some bonus cash, punching buildings to deliver pizza. Like, it's hilarious and it's over the top, but I'm thinking, like, if the pizza guy showed up and smashed one of my walls, I'd own that pizza place.
Yeah, but it's the future.
Yeah.
Or at the end of a VIP level, the rocket fist.
Yeah. I love all the customization options, not just the different parts that you can acquire in the game to customize your mech's abilities and look, but how much you can go in and just change all the colors on your mech. I made mine baby blue and bubblegum pink.
Yeah, but not nearly as hideous as I was counting on.
No, it looked really good.
I was expecting some purple or something in there as well.
Oh, I'll change the color a few more times, I'm sure. But just the first color combination, I was like, yeah, this is what I want.
But I really liked on the customization where they didn't have stats on the items themselves, but just buying the items slowly built up the power meter to unlock the new ability.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that too, because then it doesn't penalize you for using whatever customization options you want. And you don't have to buy them in any order. Mm-hmm. You can buy whatever you think looks cool first.
Yeah, like a top hat.
And then get the other stuff later. Absolutely, like a top hat. Or the Optimus Prime set. Mm-hmm. I showed that to my kid, and he's like, ooh, Optimus Prime! And I was like, do you want Daddy to get the Optimus Prime stuff? Uh-huh. Okay, so that's the first stuff I've been going for is the... What's it called in the game? Transformatron or something like that? But, I mean, it's Optimus Prime.
I mean, it's very thin references, but, it's obvious what they are. I mean, come on. Definitely Bob Ross. Immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. But I like the game. It's a lot of fun. I like the concept. It's a nice
It really comes down to the price of it, because they haven't announced the price.
Yeah. If I was purchasing this game as opposed to receiving a review copy of it, I think I'd easily pay... I mean, at $5, it's a no-brainer, I think.
I would say this is a
I'd
good
easily
$10
pay $10 for it. Yeah. And I might be inclined to pay $15 for it. I'm not sure if I'd go over that. But it's definitely a lot of fun, and I've enjoyed my time with it, and I will continue to do so. We posted last week's episode, and the developer tweeted at me. Let's see, I can go look it up.
Yeah, he thought you were me.
Yeah, basically he thought that I was you.
Poor bastard.
Let's see. My Twitter feed's a mess right now. I have a trans friend, and we were talking about, we just talk about random stuff on Twitter all the time. And they brought up trans actors, and I was like, I don't know of any trans actors, actually. And my Twitter feed has exploded. I've gotten 600 notifications in the last 2 days.
Uh-oh. Is that a good or a bad thing?
No, it's a good thing. Everybody's liking those tweets and telling me who trans actors are and what movies they've been in and stuff. But it's just made it difficult to find anything on my Twitter account. I'll get there eventually, though. Or I could just paraphrase. Basically, he was like, hey, go check out this podcast. They mentioned the episode. And then they tweeted at me again, wait, you don't have a copy? It's your co-host? Do you need a copy? Do you want a copy? And I was like, no, I've already got a copy. I got a review copy or review code. I just haven't played it yet. I'll be sure and play it before the next show. And then I tweeted at them with my picture of my pink and blue Mac. And they liked, I think, your response to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun game. Definitely a steal at $5, worth 10, possibly worth 15.
So in other words,
especially if you like this type of game.
In other words, about the price of a pizza.
This game is definitely worth the price of a pizza. Absolutely. I want some pizza right now, actually. But I don't have any, and I can't order any because it's too late for where I live. Anyways, moving on to the next game on my list, Mechs and Mercs Black Talons. Mechs and Mercs is an independently developed real-time tactics game that has a lot of issues. A lot of people dislike it. And I was pretty familiar with what the problems were, and I thought, you know what, I think as someone who's played strategy and RTS and real-time tactics games pretty much his entire life, I might be able to get through this. And it was on Humble on sale for $1. And I was like, you know what, for $1, it's worth the risk. And so it, like I said, it's a real-time tactics game, and they big up the mechs and all of the advertising, but the mechs actually play a very small part in the game. Because whenever you start missions, you have a weight limit on your dropship. And so for your starting troops, you basically can only afford one mech, and you definitely want to have quantity, because this game commits the sin of the AI that just blatantly cheats on any difficulty level. So you're limited to whatever reinforcements you have. Like you capture points on the map that allow you to bring in reinforcements from orbit. But there's a limit to both how many units you can field at a time and a limit to the total amount of units you can field, period, if they get killed. You can constantly reinforce them for forever as long as you get them back safe to a landing zone to be reinforced. But if the unit gets wiped out, they're gone forever. And they have some light RPG mechanics where that you can level up your units and they can get abilities and stat boosts and stuff. And that's helpful, but that system is fairly shallow. And given how long it takes to complete every mission, you'll have a squad within 2 missions that's at max level.
So
and then
that's
you have to decide
short level up system.
Yeah, well, the thing is it would take a lot longer if missions took less time to complete and was less grindy. But the reason they're so grindy is that the AI has infinite reinforcements. And I'm not sure if they have to follow the rule for how many troops they can have on the field at one time or not. It seems to decrease the more landing zones you take over. Like they field less troops as you take over more landing zones. So it seems like they have some sort of, limitation on how many units they can field at once. But they have infinite reinforcements. So aside from the training mission, which originally most people couldn't even beat the training mission because your guys were so weak and they had to fight infinite reinforcements that you just couldn't win it.
So not the Cuphead tutorial.
No. They changed that so that the tutorial mission doesn't have infinite reinforcements. And then you can beat the tutorial. And then it has campaign missions and side missions. And some of the campaign missions, it's fine that there's infinite reinforcements because they feel more like tower defense type levels where you set up defenses and defend an area or something like that. You just hold out. And so that's fine. But the other campaign missions and side missions that require you to actually take objectives or destroy things or whatever on the map, it really starts to eat at you how long and how grindy and how cheaty the AI is. I played a mission for 90 minutes, and I was slowly winning. And I was going to quit after I finished the mission anyways, because I've been playing for about 3 hours. I was ready to take a break. I was like, as soon as I finish this mission... Yeah, as soon as I finish this mission, I'm going to take a break, be done for a while. I'll have enough money to buy a third mech, which will fill up my mech bay for now. It'll be great. It'll be fine. And after 90 minutes, I hadn't won, and I started to actually lose, and a couple of my high-level units got killed, and I was like, fuck this, I'm quitting for right now.
And
I haven't gone back to play it since. It's got some good stuff in it. The RPG system, even though it's shallow, is still nice because it allows you to specialize units, and you can do things like name units, and you can customize their weapon loadouts. And different unit types have different loadouts to choose from, so you can't just give everybody like rocket launchers or something like that.
At least with that,
which kind of sucks because rocket launchers are awesome, but you can still customize their loadouts and create units to help or to perform certain tasks. The mech system, most of the mechs have like one hard point that is not customizable, and that's sort of like the idea of what the mech is. Like one of the starting mechs has got this massive rocket pod on its shoulder, and you can't change that. So you have to either figure out how to complement it or give it like dual functionality based on what that rocket pod is. Another one has like a shield that you can't remove, so you have to decide how you want to use that to your advantage. So that's pretty nice. I kind of like that system. It's fairly light customization, but it's enough that you can really feel like you're building stuff to perform a certain task. And there's no penalty or no cost to do the customization. So you can accept a mission, read the briefing, and then go set up your entire unit to best tackle that mission without any penalties. So that's nice. It seems like it's got a decent story based on the first few hours of play and the first few campaign missions. And it's nice to see a strategy game that seems to have a more thought out story than just, there's an alien invasion, we gotta kill everything. because that gets old after a while.
Well, it worked for StarCraft.
Yeah, it works for a few games, but when every game does it, it gets boring. It's not much of a looker. The graphics are not super great, which is not the biggest deal. Number one, I don't give a shit about graphics most of the time anyways, and number two, it's an RTS, so you're pulled out from the action most of the time, so you don't notice that the graphics aren't that great. But, that might bother some people. So, just the biggest problem and why everyone hates it is that the AI cheats on every difficulty. They don't have to follow close to the same rules you do, and that makes every mission that's not defend this point a grind fest. And if you fuck up, it's like, or even if you don't fuck up, if you just, lose some key units because the game cheats, you're like, well, shit, there goes however much time of my life.
There goes an hour and a half.
I would say that if you can pick it up for like $1 to just play around with it, it shines for the first 4-ish hours, because the first set of campaign missions where you can't go off of the beaten path, where it hasn't opened up yet, that's a really good short campaign for a real-time strategy game. But then after that, when it opens up and it starts giving you lots of different mission types and areas to go to and stuff to do, it falls apart because those missions just turn into massive grind fests because they're much less... what's the right word I'm looking for? They're
fair?
much less fair. They're much more poorly put together. So yeah, it just devolves into garbage. So I feel like I got $1 worth of entertainment out of it, but beyond that, I don't know if I'll ever go back and play this game again.
So in other words,
because I got so pissed off at it, I'd buy that for $1. Next game on my list, which I didn't buy for $1 and I wouldn't buy for $1, is Galactic Harvester. This is a very simple looking farming game, where the idea is that you are building a farm on another world because our solar system has gone to shit because the star's dead. So you're trying
so the bulb went out.
Yeah, so you're trying to build farms to sustain human colonies. And it's got a cute little art style. It's very voxely, low poly art style. Everything's peppy. It's got like a peppy little song and cute animations. And for like 30 minutes, you're like, yeah, this is fun and nice and cute. And then it also falls apart. It's very, very simple, which is fine. I don't have a problem with the game being simple. That would make it a pretty good podcasting game or a pretty good doing something in the background type of game. But it's too fiddly. Everything is just takes too much time and is just too annoying. So, for example, you till the ground to plant your first crops, and the tilling part's easy. You just drive over and it has a wide swath of tiles that it tills the ground for you so you can go plant stuff in it. And it's like, that's great. So you get your first seeds to plant stuff, and at the beginning, you can only pick up one item at a time. So every single plot you want to plant, you go pick up a seed, you plant it. You drive around, you pick up your next seed, you plant it, and repeat, add in, forever until you're done with that. Then you wait for your plants to harvest. You go to harvest them, and then you have to pick them up one at a time and drive them over to the little thing where you drop it in. And you have to stop because this game uses physics, so things like have momentum and weight to them. So you have to stop and drop your crop, and if you accidentally bump it, it might fly out of the little collection bin. And your crops, you don't harvest them. They just like pop out of the ground. Even the crops that you have to use the harvester for, they just sort of pop out of the ground. And there's no way to actually collect them. So literally every item has to be picked up and dropped off one at a time.
Sounds so fiddly, doesn't it?
It's so fucking fiddly. There's a very simple research system to it which is like the more food you grow, the more colonists you attract, which gives you points to spend on the research tree, and then also money to buy things, so you can buy different seeds and cosmetic items. And later on, there's things you can buy like sprinkler systems and stuff like that, which none of the starting crops require you to water them, but the later ones do. And one of the first things that you can get is, what's it called? A bucket picker or something like that. And I'm thinking, okay, thank God I get this. It's really frustrating at the beginning and that sucks, but I can get this bucket picker and I can grab multiple items at a time. But no, what it does is it puts like this little catcher net thing on the front of your tractor, which you have to then use to sort of try and herd the items in wherever you want them to go, and you can't actually pick them up, so it relies on the physics engine, which is really basic and terrible. So half the time you're just flinging shit across the map trying to get it and drag it into the collection bin. And at that point I just got frustrated and I quit. And I haven't played it anymore. It's no fun.
Yeah, it
and
doesn't
it had
sound
potential.
like they're going to make the early access goals. According to the blue box, they want to leave early access by the end of the year. Not sure about that.
I mean, it's got some potential to be a good podcast game or background game. If they just make it a little less fiddly, because it's super simple. The music is peppy and nice.
Not much of the tutorial, and it looks interesting where they're driving around and everything. But the thing is that because having to go pick up everything one at a time, having everything fly around, yes, it makes for an interesting trailer, but
yeah, really fiddly, annoying gameplay. And it does seem like there's a little bit of depth to it. There's you can generate whatever type of planet or really body, because you can do asteroid farming. I'm not quite sure how well that would work, but you can randomly generate or you can self-generate a variety of different types of worlds that some have longer day or longer night or higher level moisture levels, different types of atmosphere. So it there's at least some depth on like setting your difficulty and how well certain crops will grow or things like that, which is, a good starting point, but the gameplay's just so fucking fiddly. Bugs me. But, it's got some potential, but it needs to have some work done for sure. Also, the entire game is played with one hand. You don't use the mouse at all except in the menus, and then you use WASD to drive around, QE, F, and R to interact with things, and that's it. That's all you use for the entire game.
So, in other words, if the tractor had some sort of vacuum attachment,
that would be great. If you could get a vacuum attachment and have like a little, I don't know, trailer or something, and you could vacuum up your stuff and then dump the trailer, that would be great.
Only if it made the noise, right?
Yes.
And of course, every so often, whenever you pick up something, it goes.
But they could do something like, what's the Slime Rancher? Because the little vacuum in Slime Rancher's just got an inventory on it. And you suck stuff up, and then you spit it out into your collector.
Yeah, Slime Rancher
would be great.
Good, I think, comparison to this. Good, Slime Rancher has its own inventory problems.
Yeah, but it's better than this. Because you don't have an inventory.
True.
So next game on my list, Frankengirl. This is a mobile game. There's a free-to-play version of this game, but I bought... it was on sale. I bought it for 99 cents. I think it's normally like $2.50 or something like that.
So you bought that for $1?
I bought that for $1. And this is a relatively simple mobile game. It's a combination of a clicker and... Well, I don't really know. You assemble girls from parts. So you're a scientist, and there's actually a really interesting backstory that you find out as you play the game and you build these girls. But as the name implies, Frankengirl, you're a scientist, and you grow girls in a lab.
Right.
The game opens up, and there's like this time traveling lady, and she's like, "Don't give up on your project. We need you. You're the key to everything. I'm the key to everything. Keep working." no, and then like the portal closes and you're like, what the fuck? Okay, I guess I'll keep working on my project. And you get this Frankengirl thing going, and you grow body parts in your lab, and you collect different body parts, and then you assemble them into different types of girls, and you can give them different outfits to create different Frankengirls. And you create the girls, and you do stuff with them, but it's not sex stuff.
Right.
So,
of course it isn't. I mean, you're just growing girls out of the kindness of your heart. This isn't creepy at all.
So, okay, so the story to this game, what I've gathered so far, is there was some kind of artificial intelligence uprising that caused the apocalypse.
Like you do.
But the humans won, but the AI, in like a last-ditch fuck you spite attack, killed most of the female population of the planet. So the human birth rate has dropped to unsustainable levels, and eventually humanity's going to die off. So you're creating these women, or these girls, to repopulate the female portion of the human race so that you can repopulate the human race. But then you discover, through the magic of bioengineering and chemistry, that you can create superior humans for specific tasks. And so you have a list of objectives that you get and quests that you get as you go through the game to create these specific types of girls to fulfill specialist roles. And so you can just make girls and, for lack of a better term, release them into the general population. And that's a good thing because you're helping to repopulate the Earth, and so you get funding to support your lab for doing that. But you also have a university that you can send these girls to. And whenever you complete one of the special girls and send her to the university, she has a learning period where that essentially just a meter builds up. And then once the meter builds up, you send her to whatever her specific job is, and you get like a huge bonus, and another part of the story is unlocked, and you'll get the next big quest. It's a really weird game.
I was about to say.
It's like the right kind of weird that I like. So, yeah, the free version of the game doesn't include any of the story or anything like that. So basically you can just make girls. So like, if you're into that, by all means, go ahead. But the paid version is the one that has the story. So it's fascinating and weird. But like, obviously you can make like Animu. You can make like a cat girl and a cow girl, like an actual cow girl, and a pig girl. And you can make a zombie girl.
I think that's kind of defeating the purpose with the zombie girl. Aren't you supposed to be, repopulating?
Yeah. You can make Sailor Moon, basically. There's a few other ones.
No, it'd be Sailor Moon, wouldn't it? Or something like that.
Well, I mean, it's not. It's very clearly Sailor Moon, or a Sailor Moon knockoff.
No, it's a no way Sailor Moon.
I think that like the outfit for that is called Moon Powered. Is what the outfit is called. And I haven't found any moon-powered body parts, so I don't know if that's specific or if you have to just like...
Where are you getting the body parts?
You grow them in the lab out of seeds. I haven't...
Wait a minute.
I haven't got an explanation for that yet. I don't know if they're magical seeds or if it's some byproduct of the war with the AI or what. But yes, you grow them from seeds. And you have an unlimited supply of normal seeds, and then there's special seeds you can acquire. I'm pretty sure there's no such thing as
normal in this game.
It's a really weird game. But, yep. I'll let you know how it ends whenever I finish it, because goddamn does it take a long time to train those girls up. But, yeah. You can get boosts and stuff. Everything, you get a shitload of in-game money, but the monetization is still in there. Like if you want to just buy stuff to speed up your progress, because of course it is, because of course it's a mobile game. But I don't know if you get
vaginas.
I don't know if you get like way less money in the free version or whatever, but not once have I been tempted to buy anything in game just because I get enough money to improve things. And you can like, of course, you can improve your laboratory so you can grow body parts faster. You can improve your school so your girls get trained faster. And you can improve other stuff. But yeah, it's fun. It's weird.
You find the weird shit.
Yeah, I do. I do indeed. Moving on from that to my last two games, which I'm going to kind of group together. MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries and Mech Commander 2, both games which I've talked about numerous times on the show because of how much I love them. I'm just really excited for BattleTech in 2 weeks, and I really hope that game doesn't suck. But in my excitement for BattleTech, I wanted to go back and replay some of the older games in that universe. And MechWarrior 4 and Mech Commander 2 are both abandonware games, which you can easily download from myabandonware.com.
Yarg.
Which the links to that are going to be in the show notes because that's the links that I put in for these games. If you've never played them, I would suggest that you do. MechWarrior 4 Mercenaries is a little bit fiddly if you don't have a joystick to get it working properly with a mouse, but within 10 or 15 minutes you should have that set up, no problem. And then Mech Commander 2, use the ISO because the ripped file does not have all of the audio assets. If you get the ISO and essentially rip all that stuff, you can put them into the ripped file and it'll work fine. But if you don't want to go through that process, just use the ISO.
You know, outside of MechWarrior Online, I'm a little shocked we haven't really seen another successful mech game. Or, piloting mech, I should say.
Yeah. There was
a couple of that style, but they weren't the stompy, slow, essentially walking tanks. They were the Japanese style, mecha.
Yeah, Chrome Hounds was the last successful stompy mech game before MechWarrior Online, and that was like a mid-2000s Xbox 360 only release title. But yeah, all of the mechs in that game were really slow and felt very powerful.
Yeah,
it felt very MechWarrior inspired.
Hawken fell through rather quickly, didn't it?
I think Hawken survived for a couple of years, but it died off. Hawken was more like a first-person shooter with a mech skin. Yeah. That's what that game felt like. Which was alright. I played Hawken. It was a fine game, but it's not what I wanted. I wanted MechWarrior. But MechWarrior Online, it really suffers from free-to-play. Yeah. The free-to-play mechanics.
Yeah, I like it overall. It's such a grind to do anything. Or it's fucking expensive. And I like my kiddies where they are. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think MechWarrior 5, which is also supposed to come out late this year, like Q3 or Q4, so it might get pushed to 2019. But MechWarrior 5 looks like they basically took MechWarrior Online and made a single-player game out of it. Which
a story campaign.
Which I'm fine with that, because MechWarrior Online does look and handle really well. So, it's a solid game. It just suffers from being a free-to-play game, with everything being either ridiculously expensive or locked behind a paywall of some kind.
Yeah, they transitioned the idea of running a mech with a joystick to mouse and keyboard rather well in MechWarrior Online.
Yeah, I prefer to use a joystick just for the the feel of it. Yeah, but it does. I mean, I've played it both ways. Honestly,
well, we both know you go both ways.
Better. I think it plays better with mouse, but I just like the feel of using a joystick.
Well, it adds the additional accuracy, and MechWarrior Online's built around being more accurate. The original MechWarrior series had a little bit of aim assist to be able to handle the less precise joystick movements. If memory serves correctly, it's been a while since I've tried to play them. I think there was a little bit, not a lot. There was a lock on for particular weapons.
Yeah, it's hard to tell with MechWarrior 4.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing: is that done well, a lock-on mechanic isn't as apparent as some games make it.
It doesn't feel like there's one, but that could be a combination of either it's done really well and I haven't noticed, or the game is not intended to be played with the type of joystick that I have, because this is a USB joystick that's ultra sensitive and it's really twitchy. So I had to kind of mess with the settings to get the dead zone just right. So it could be a combination of those. I will say that if you try to use a HOTAS with MechWarrior 4, I hope you have one of the ones that's like combined together, because it doesn't recognize multiple devices, and my HOTAS setup, each piece uses its own USB connection. So I could use either the throttle or the stick, but not both. And I was like, well, I guess I'll use the stick to drive and shoot, and I'll just use the keyboard.
No, you use the throttle to steer.
Oh, up for right and down for left.
Or you just turn the throttle sideways.
I do. I actually
like
could
rudder.
steer with I could steer with my throttle because I have a rudder. It's got a rudder button on it, or a rudder. I don't know what you'd call it. Paddles that are analog as opposed to just being buttons. So I could actually steer, but
That would
then I'd have
actually
to use
work
the mouse
really
to
well
aim.
together. You know, the rudder would be able to turn the mech. Or
Yeah.
turn the torso, I should say. Because
I keep intending.
that's one thing that I think a lot of people, at least newbies on MechWarrior Online, didn't realize is it's really important to learn to turn the torso.
Yeah. Yeah, if I keep intending to play MechWarrior Online with my HOTAS, but at the same time I keep going, but
that grind.
all those free-to-play mechanic, that grind. I should play it a little bit just to test it, though, because it would be sweet to use the whole setup. Maybe I'll do that this week.
Yeah, it's just the grind put me off of MechWarrior Online, and that's something else that's always bugged me is microtransactions in free-to-play games never feel micro.
Yeah. Yep. We're focusing more on the MechWarrior aspect. Mech Commander is much closer to what BattleTech is going to be. The Mech Commander series were real-time strategy, whereas BattleTech is going to be turn-based, more like the tabletop game, but same. It seems like they're closer in concept and also gameplay. So, because in Mech Commander 2, you've got a lot more control over the mechs and how you customize them. I mean, there's plenty of customization in MechWarrior 4 with loadouts and things, but in Mech Commander 2, there's a lot less limitations on what you can do to customize. And there's also some light RPG elements in Mech Commander 2 where you can level up your pilots and give them skill boosts and other things. But yeah, good games. Can't wait for BattleTech. I really hope it's not bad. I haven't been this excited about a game in a long time, and it really sucks when games you're excited about suck. So fingers crossed it's not bad.
Well, it's not like the studios had good games in the past, though.
I don't know what games they've made in the past, or have they made any?
It's harebrained.
Oh, is it harebrained?
It's harebrained schemes. They made Shadowrun Returns.
Okay. Yep, Shadowrun Returns, good game. So, good. Now I'm a little more excited and slightly more confident.
Granted, they do have Necropolis Brutal Edition, which didn't do all that well, but
yeah, they got all the Shadowruns. The newer Shadowruns, and that's good because those games are good. All right.
My only concern about BattleTech really is the publisher more than the developer.
Paradox, right?
All the DLC.
Yeah. I could deal with that though, as long as the game's good.
Granted,
that has filled with microtransactions and loot boxes and bullshit.
Yeah, if they have loot boxes, well, let's just put it this way: I'm gonna go downstairs, get a pretzel, and then I'm just gonna sit and watch Twitter because I have a feeling it'll be entertaining.
I'm sure it will be. Alrighty. Well, that wraps up the games that we played this week, and as usual, we went way longer than we thought we were going to. Do you need a quick break?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okie dokie. Then let's move on to our first topic of the week. The PUBG Corp files a lawsuit against NetEase for alleged copyright infringement. This thing is a mess, a convoluted mess.
No, this is dumb as fuck. That's what this is.
It is dumb too.
When I started seeing this coming around in the news cycle, I actually stopped and I looked at the date thinking, okay, is this an April Fool's joke that just got out late? Because this is one of those things that is just stupid. This feels like an April Fool's joke, but it isn't. So this is Bluehole being complete asses again and suing someone. Remember they were throwing a fit about Epic with Fortnite a while back. Well, now they're actually picking on a Chinese mobile developer. Of course, because they just released PUBG on mobile. But, how do we want to approach this? Because the court document is 100-some pages. We do have...
Yeah, we're not...
we do have Leonard Fringe's video, which he actually says that there may be a case, but this is also approaching it as a potential... he was approaching as a lawyer potentially for the plaintiff, saying that maybe he would be able to argue a case with this, which, that's one thing versus another. But we also have videos for Jim Sterling and Sealed Alpha. So we have a wide assortment of video content to fall back on if we don't explain this well enough.
Yeah, I don't want to go through the entire lawsuit because that would take forever. And also, I haven't read the entire lawsuit. But let's go with like a gist.
Let's go with what started this originally. It's not the game itself, which what was the actual games? This is two battle royale mobile games from
Knives Out and Rules of Survival. Which I believe Rules of Survival is pretty much a clone of PUBG.
Well, sort of.
And I can't remember if Knives Out was another clone or just close enough.
What they are really arguing about this, outside of gameplay mechanics, which, don't get me started on that. Their big argument on this is that there's brand confusion because YouTubers are equating PUBG and Rules of Survival and Knives Out, ignoring the fact that this is essentially clickbait / manipulating the SEO to trying to get other videos showing up on PUBG search results. That's all that is. That's not YouTubers confusing PUBG and these other games. It's them trying to work the SEO, the algorithms on YouTube. Period. Nothing else. But Bluehole is a blue asshole in this. Which that sounds like, even worse now that I think about it. And really going after these other developers, trying to stomp out any competition that they can. Never minding the fact that they're creating a lot of negative publicity in the process.
So I'm looking at both of these games on the Play Store. Rules of Survival is close enough that I would say, aside from just like the gameplay mechanics, like it looks like a ripoff. But Knives Out has got maybe, gameplay mechanics, but it's got a little bit of a different art style, and it looks like it's got some different play mechanics.
Well, considering what they were actually going after in this, it's more the fact that there's similar things in the game. Like they were talking about shipping containers. They were talking about the styles of houses. The fact that there were houses in the game, essentially. The fact that...
Frying pan.
Don't get me started on the iconic frying pan. And no, I'm not making that up. They're actually calling it an iconic frying pan.
Yeah, not proper iconic, but Ubisoft iconic. I'm pretty sure Jim Sterling said that in his video.
Oh, it's just... What the hell? Probably the most striking is the fact that they're bringing up the idea of the map screen and even the pre-game lobby. So they're talking about how they essentially cornered the market because they created the pre-game lobby. Right.
Yeah. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't see how they have a case at all. But I got the sense that Leonard French was like, I might have a case, but it's not a good case, and I'm pretty sure I wouldn't win.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't say those things, but that's how it came across.
Yeah, that's he was essentially playing devil's advocate and trying to approach it as a lawyer for the plaintiff, saying there may be a little bit of a case here, but considering he was talking about, okay, I'm going to show these on screen from the PDF court documents and let you be the judge, or let you be the jury. I mean, the fact that he is approaching it like that tells me that he doesn't really think that, at least in my opinion. I could be wrong on that. But, damn.
Yeah.
I think outside of the whole thing, the fact that the rubber chicken.
Yeah.
Okay.
The frying pan is still my favorite, but yeah, the rubber chicken.
And I believe it was Rules of Survival. They have a melee weapon that's a rubber chicken that allows you to run faster. And Blue Hole is going after them because they're saying that invokes the winner, winner, chicken dinner message.
Because that's unique to PUBG and has never been said anywhere before, ever.
Definitely not. If that's the case, all right, if they are going after Rules of Survival and Knives Out for that, RoboCraft Royale is fucked. You know why?
Why is that?
Well, they don't use the winner, winner, chicken dinner. I'm trying to find it on here because it's just stupid. Did they pull RoboCraft Royale, or I'm not seeing it? I'm not seeing RoboCraft Royale.
The Steam page doesn't go anywhere. The actual RoboCraft Royale site is still up, or webpage, but whenever you click on the Steam link, it just goes to the Steam store page. Oh, back soon. Dear RoboCraft Royalers, it's time for us to implement building and reflect on what we've learned from you. In the meantime, we'll be taking the game down in order to bring something incorporating the improvements you've asked for.
Wow. So, that's a thing. I was going to... I wanted to get the proper term because it was just stupid, but it was obviously harping on PUBG. I believe it was Boosty, ham and cheese toasty or something. That's why I was wanting to go look at the page to be able to make sure I had it correct.
I still have RoboCraft Royale installed. I never played it. I won't do it now, but I'll try and launch the game later and see what happens.
But yeah, I didn't even know RoboCraft Royale was down. I was wanting to go get that phrase. But yeah, there has to be some sort of record for the quickest Battle Royale game's gone down.
Oh my. So reading this announcement farther, picking up in the middle of a sentence, RoboCraft Royale followed a different path and has not achieved the popularity we have hoped. The game is simply not engaging enough to compete with already established Royale games, nor did the RoboCraft community embrace the product because it lacked building, which is a cornerstone of RoboCraft. It was always the intention of ours to add building, but we admit not enough importance was placed on it in this aspect of the game in the early phases of development. So, we've decided to close down our early access game on Steam. We'll take time to reflect on what we've learned. We'll take time to reflect on what we've learned. That's actually what it says. And develop a new improved game based on improvements you've suggested.
But yeah, it's a little cumbersome. It's something that reads better than what it's spoken.
Yeah. So there we go. RoboCraft Royale is maybe gone.
It's going back into the oven.
Yeah. So there we go. That was a little detour.
Yeah. I didn't intend that. I didn't know. I just wanted to get the phrase.
The more you know.
Well, knowing is half the battle. It's half the
happened
battle
on the
royale.
and that announcement was posted on the 4th of April, so last week on Wednesday.
Yeah, so that could have been in the show on the docket, but I didn't know about it.
Yeah. So what the thing that gets me the most about this whole lawsuit, beyond the frying pan being my favorite part, is even by some miracle, if they put together a case and they win, there's no way to enforce anything on the Chinese developers. There have been similar lawsuits for other products. The car industry comes to mind.
Direct copies, not
direct copies of stuff that people have won the cases, and the Chinese companies have just ignored them because they don't export those vehicles to countries where the lawsuit would have been effective. So they're just like, fuck it, we don't have to listen to this. And it gets so convoluted because there's no clear line, and every country treats digital products differently. But the worst thing that I could see happening if PUBG somehow manages to win this case, is that NetEase just goes, okay, fuck it, and then they pull the game from American American app stores, and then and they just go about their merry way.
Well, if PUBG wins, well, then they're going to be constantly in lawsuits because it puts precedent in the law, and wouldn't that open them up to a lot of problems?
Yeah, because they borrowed or used a lot of pre-existing assets from other games. The Arma series.
Well, that's not exactly against the law. I mean, they're using asset store stuff, but the fact that they're using asset store stuff and then complaining about other games using likely asset store stuff, it's just stupid. Or the guns. The guns are the good one, where both games are modeling their guns after real life guns, and then PUBG is throwing a fit because the other game's guns look like theirs when they don't own the fucking images of the guns to begin with.
Yeah, they don't own the guns. They don't own any of those rights or anything. So, yeah, this is just stupid all around. It's kind of humorous, but it's mostly just like face palming.
Sour grapes. They are trying to throw a fit because they've lost the number one spot in the Battle Royale market. They still have it in China, but China is a complete quagmire because of the rampant cheating. To the fact that Dell actually markets their computers to be able to run more cheats than the competitors.
Yep.
Yes, I was able to work it in.
You were able to work it in. Good job. I'll let you fix it in the show notes.
Yeah, Dell actually has a marketing campaign, and part of it is talking about running more cheats. And this is an actual Dell employee talking about this. Or sorry, they're using the term add-ons, not cheats, because but then they talk about how their players are the best in the world because of the cheats. It's like talking about how Russian athletes are the best in the world because they have every steroid in existence in their bloodstream, right?
Because they use all the steroids.
No, I just naturally have horse hormones in my bloodstream. Oh, it's just astonishing.
In Russia, steroids take you. But yeah, this whole thing is just dumb.
Yeah, it reads like a bad April Fool's joke.
And it honestly, like, what I think this does, and, maybe a lot of people just don't give a shit, but what I feel like this does is just make PUBG look worse and worse. Because it's like, oh, you can't settle for being number 2. You can't settle for still having like 2 million active players or whatever.
They're still the top battle royale on Steam.
Yeah. Like, you can't settle for that. You have to pitch a fit because Fortnite passed you overall. And that makes me less interested in ever picking it up, even on sale, to just play with the people in our community who play it. Because I don't want to support babies. I got one of those of my own. He throws enough fits. I don't need my hobby throwing fits too. But yeah,
but there's the other thing that came out in this case is them talking about how cosmetics affect the gameplay, which was also interesting and something that we really have done before. But to hear a game developer talk about it.
Yeah, in some games, cosmetics are just cosmetic, but in a game like this, the cosmetics matter, because if you get something that matches the color of the terrain, it camouflages you better. And even if it's only a 1% advantage, that still will stack the odds slightly in your favor.
Yeah, the statement from the lawsuit. However, clothing does affect gameplay in terms of camouflage. Clothing can be used to assist the player to blend in with the environment, making the player less visibly detectable. In particular, Battlegrounds, it's all caps, includes a ghillie suit, a full-body suit covered with camouflaging material that typically used by snipers. The ghillie suit allows players to become nearly virtually invisible, depending on the terrain. So, then it starts to get into the whole pay-to-win aspect, doesn't it?
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen people say, like, if you want to win in PUBG, just hide in a bush.
Yeah, but...
Because even with graphics settings turned all the way down, people can't see you.
Yeah, but if you have, a bright orange hat... but it's just funny hearing them admit that. Especially since they're trying to go after helmet designs in the other games, because they look like helmets.
Yeah.
Honestly, this entire thing... Assuming that this isn't, this is legit, because it still feels like some sort of weird joke, to be perfectly honest, even seeing the court documents and everything. Part of me wonders if this is just a lawyer that has way too much free time. But then remembering, the absolute, shit fit they threw on Epic. Never mind the fact that they use the Epic engine. It makes that possibility remote.
I don't know. I mean, if I was a lawyer and they contacted me and they were like, hey, we want to take this lawsuit in, I think if you're an ethical lawyer, you would say, like, look, this seems like a real big long shot, real unlikely. And they're like, we don't care. We want to do it. We're going to give you
all the money.
I'd be like, all right. Let's just sign up, in our contract that I cautioned you against this. Just protect yourself in case they decide to take it out on you when they lose.
What you're saying? Yeah, I'd do it. Fit?
No, I'm not saying that specifically. But I'd do it. Why not? It's a lot of money. Seems like it'd be. Well, I don't know, because it seems like it'd be an easy case because you're pretty much going to lose. You know that going in. But maybe it's not easy. I don't know. Because to do your due diligence on a case that you're going to lose, you'd be spending a lot of time throwing shit up and trying to come with counter arguments.
Look at it this way. They spent a lot of time on Reddit getting frying pan memes.
Yes, indeed.
Because that's actually...
I love those
That's actually in the court documents as well, demonstrating how the frying pan is iconic of PUBG. So, no other game could ever have frying pans, and never had frying pans before PUBG.
Right, absolutely. There's never been a frying pan in a video game before for any reason, not even cooking.
Nope. Cooking Mama, she just slapped things directly on the stove. She never heard of a frying pan.
She uses a wok. Actually, Cooking Mommy might use a wok sometimes, but she also uses a frying pan.
No, that's a lie. PUBG was the one that pioneered the frying pan.
Right, they never existed in history before. All of the frying pans that you've ever seen in your life before PUBG released. Excuse me.
You okay?
Yeah, they weren't frying pans. Yeah, I'm fine.
Fake frying pan.
Choked a little.
Oh. So, are we done with this absolute madness? Because
I think so. I mean, we could deep dive into it, but it's all ridiculous and stupid.
Gaming lately has just gotten completely insane with the battle royales. A matter of fact, now I'm blanking on the company, but Lawbreakers, Cliffy B released a battle royale today.
Did he? Oh, I haven't seen that.
I linked it to you. Radical Heights, the one that I said that looked like absolute dog shit.
Did you send it to me on Steam? Because you sent me a few things before I saw my Steam chat. I'll just Google it. It's fine. I'll find it.
Yeah, well, it was Boss Key Productions.
Oh, wait. I typed in Radical Heights and it pulled me up to Fortnite. I guess because it's a battle royale. Epic Games has got that on lockdown on the Google.
Here you go. I gotta admit that the trailer just looks bad. It looks like they shoved it out into early access, but way before it's ready, based on the screenshots.
The trailer, the opening few seconds where the logo's showing up, that hurts my eyes. That neon and all the flashing.
Yeah, and know at least one critic that probably had a seizure seeing that.
Free extreme early access battle royale shooter. Why do they put it in all caps? Partake in high-stakes gunplay as you loot for weapons, gadgets, cosmetics, and cash!
Well, they already had to back off the Founder Pack because it was blatant pay to win. They have a thing where you're able to put money into an overall account and then withdraw it later. And the Founder Pack both had starting money in it. And, well, it still does have a modifier on the amount of money that you put into the account. Which, I don't want to touch that.
I love this recommended positive review. Blah, 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 blah. Right in the middle. The screen flashing green can be fixed by switching to windowed full screen windowed mode. If your game crashes on startup, turn to medium or low. High settings can work, but only if you have 10 plus gigabytes of RAM available.
This game is, like I said, dog shit. Look at the recommended specs for that. That's way high for what this game looks like.
I love a review that starts, first of all, people do not seem to understand that this is a mega early build of the game. Don't release your game that early if it's broken.
I can't hear you chasing a saturated market. I mean, it's Cliffy B.
Oh, minimum requirements. So a mid-range i5, 8 gigabytes of RAM, pretty standard. GTX 660, Radeon 7870.
Look at recommended.
Recommended specs for recommended. i5 6600K, so the top end i5.
Or a Ryzen 5 1600, which is the mid-range, or upper mid-range on the Ryzen.
16 gigabytes of RAM, 1060, or the Radeon RX 580.
Recommended specs minimum are recommended specs for low quality setting in 1080p. Doesn't mention a frame rate. The recommended is 60 FPS and high quality.
My PC is like right there on the edge. I've got the RX 480, which is a little bit less powerful than the 580, but fairly comparable. And then an i5 6700 or 6600K. I've got the i7 4790K. So those are probably around the same horsepower level.
But yeah, everybody's chasing the battle royale carrot. And I do think that there's going to be a lot of games that just fall by the wayside because these games require a huge player base.
Yeah. Unless you put bots in, but that kind of defeats the purpose.
Or you just go smaller battle royale, which then people complain because true battle royale is 100 players only.
Which I think is bullshit.
I would say most genres usually have one big winner, 2 or 3 of second tier, and then enough players left over for a few more in the third tier. Playable but not many people on them. I would say in the 1,000 to 2,000 range. Battle Royale, just because of the players' requirements, I would say that you're looking at maybe 4 really popular games, and that's it.
Yeah, I was going to say 3 or 4. And now, if there are some Battle Royale games that go for smaller sizes or some other sort of gimmick or something that we can't think of or, would be like, oh, hey, that makes sense. But,
Yeah, we're talking about the full 100-player Battle Royale experience.
Yeah, there would be room for some more niche titles, just like there always are in any genre. But, yeah, I think your, big games, there's only going to be, 3 or 4 when this is all settled.
Yeah, and I think that's why PUBG is trying to stomp out competition, is that they are afraid that they're going to fall off, especially as they're having to kind of lock down their big player base. They're having to essentially region lock out China. And there has to be some sort of internal numbers that are making them really panic about that.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes no other sense otherwise. That they're so panicky about locking down China.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they're going after this. And, coming all the way back around to being back on topic, is maybe that's why they're going after Epic. They're going after these Chinese developers that honestly I never heard of. Either of these mobile battle royale games. Granted, don't really follow battle royale or mobile games, but maybe that's why there's something internally that they're seeing trouble on the horizon that we can't see outside yet. That or they're just fucking stupid.
I had seen Rules of Survival before, just on the popular or whatever when I've browsed the Play Store before, but it's Battle Royale on mobile? Nah, I'm good. But I'd never heard of Knives Out before this. But yeah, cool.
So that was a thing.
I think allegedly they're just whiny babies. Allegedly. Oh. All right. Moving on to our next topic of the week. GTA 5 is the most profitable entertainment product of all time. Maybe. So I saw this article, or I saw something about this on Reddit, and I was like, oh, that's neat. This will be a nice, 5-minute time filler, or maybe something that could go to Franken content type of thing. GTA 5 is the most profitable entertainment thing, beating out movies and books and stuff and other video games. That's kind of neat, but at the same time, why did it have to be GTA 5? Why couldn't it have been a good game?
Well, I really think GTA 5 has kind of jumped the shark card.
Ha ha. And then you posted something where a snarky response where someone had said, no, it's not. Think about World of Warcraft.
Yeah, I saw that earlier after seeing the GTA thing yesterday, I believe, and I thought, I'll leave this for you because that's snarky enough, and I knew you wouldn't be too happy about GTA 5 because you've seemed really put off, especially by the multiplayer.
Yeah, but so after that, I was like, I wonder how many copies World of Warcraft has actually sold, because they've touted in the last few years we have over 100 million accounts, but accounts don't transition to sold copies of the game, because if you have ever tried it, you have to create an account, and then even if you decide to continue playing and convert to a paying subscriber, you don't have to buy the base game. You just pay for the subscription, and then you keep playing with the base game. Obviously, if you want the expansion content, you have to buy those. But I think the base game goes all the way up to Mists of Pandaria now. That's what's included with the base, I think. It's been a while, so I might have that one wrong. But it's got the first, at least Burning Crusade and Wrath of the Lich King.
The good content
are included with the base now. And maybe Cataclysm too. Actually, Cataclysm is, because it changed a bunch of the stuff in the world, so all the way up through Cataclysm is definitely included. And I think Mist of Pandaria just got rolled into it. But anyways, I'm getting off track. So, their accounts doesn't necessarily translate to games sold. So then I got to digging around, and the only thing that I was able to find on this 30-minute rabbit trail is a site called Statistics Brain, where that they have got something posted from like late 2017 that breaks down all of the Blizzard games and how many owners that they have. And World of Warcraft, including all of the expansions, is 56 million units sold. So then I was like, well, if they're only counting units sold and not revenue, GTA 5 has sold 90 million units. But then if you just go by units sold, like there's Tetris and Wii Sports and other games that have sold more.
Yeah, but Wii Sports also was a pack-in title.
Yeah. But then they mentioned revenue in one of the articles. There's several I've looked at. And World of Warcraft has more revenue, but then another article mentions just gross profit, which Blizzard has a higher development cost because they're an MMO, so they have a lot more resources that they have to put into just keeping the game going.
Yeah, and GTA Online is just essentially matchmaking, and everything's hosted between players, isn't it?
Yeah. They don't have servers. It just does.
Which is in no
peer-to-peer.
way made it a hacking mess.
As far as I know, there's no servers. There might be like something on the console side, but I'm 99% sure the PC version is just peer-to-peer.
I went to just look at the expansion list because I wanted to make sure they're coming up with their 7th expansion this year. But there's this long speculation on how long till the next expansion before the actual release date was announced, and there's this long thing of how long it was between the last raid content and the next expansion, and how long the interval in between expansions, which is right at the 2-year mark. So yeah, but granted, I quit after the 3rd expansion. Boy, it's been that long.
But I mean, this was just a weird rabbit trail that I went down because you posted like a snarky response article.
Can you blame me?
For me to find. No, it's fine. Just I'm like, this is kind of a convoluted mess.
But that's really just how the gaming industry is, because there's a lot of secrets, particularly around player counts and around revenue. But, of course, games are way too expensive to make, so, they wouldn't announce, how many units they've sold.
Yeah. But there wasn't really a super big point to that, just like, well, this was interesting.
Hopefully.
I thought it was interesting. Do you have anything you want to add, or
not really? It is
on?
kind of odd just how secretive the gaming industry is with a lot of their sales figures.
Yeah.
The fact that the only way we really find anything out on PC numbers is just Steam Spy. And that's a margin of error, but usually a better margin of error than just the round numbers that developers will announce or publishers will announce.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on to our next one, and this is a sort of small general topic.
Pseudo-general topic, spawned from the Last Inquisition, where he declared the year of the loot box dead, essentially, with the pulling of loot boxes from Shadow of War and the reversal of Battlefront 2 to a more traditional progression style and getting away from the pay-to-win loot box system.
And going back to DLC and microtransactions.
Yeah, and
like cosmetic DLC and microtransactions.
Yeah, but that completely breaks canon. How dare they do that?
How dare they?
What?
I'm just waiting for the pink Darth Vader.
No, they're going to license Hello Kitty Darth Vader.
That would be amazing. I might buy Battlefront 2 for Hello Kitty Darth Vader. It would be really tempting.
Hello Kitty Darth Vader with a pink lightsaber.
I would need some moral support to get through that crisis.
Why to save you from Katie whenever she finds out that you bought a game because of Hello Kitty Darth Vader.
No, I don't care about that. Just to keep me from going against my moral code. Because
in other words, you need me to go there with a newspaper and say no.
Yes.
No. So, getting back onto our little general topic, it seemed like a good time to really sit down and talk about just the state of the industry with loot boxes. I mean, we've focused on loot boxes before, but not really where they are in the industry, more focused on a particular game or a particular topic. And I really think it's a little too early to claim you're the loot box dead. It really depends on the autumn releases. Because right now, the big AAA releases are essentially in their final stages. And if there's still loot boxes in there, it may be too late to really redo the progression systems. So I think it's a little premature to claim you're the loot box dead over some major victories, mind you, but early victories.
Yeah. I don't think that it's time to call it yet. I agree with you. We have to wait until particularly the fall and Christmas releases, where most of your big AAA titles cluster together still, to see what happens. I mean,
the two big...
And also see what...
the big two loot box titles that we're celebrating, they released, within a month of each other? 2 months?
Yeah. Let's see. Shadow of War was, I think, September, like end of September, 1st of October, I believe. And Battlefront 2 was October, November, something like that, like right before Christmas.
But, then there's also Need for Speed, which was quietly redone, which honestly I completely forgot because, that's kind of a minor thing in the grand scheme of things. Need for Speed was a more low-key game. I mean, it's still a major title, but not a lot of focus on it. I think where the victory would be, if we get like a total victory over loot boxes, would be in the sports games, where it's kind of quietly been rampant for a while, just because of a natural divide between the sports game enthusiast and the general gaming population.
Yeah.
Which there was some discontent over. Wait, they're upset about this is shit?
Yeah, there's been some pushback on it from the general gaming population who plays games like FIFA or sports games, but nowhere near the amount of backlash that happened with Battlefront 2 and Shadow of War and
Need for Speed to some extent.
Need for
but
Speed.
That was more just I would love to see their sales on Need for Speed. I never really saw them talk about their sales overall. Granted, I never really dove into that, and just because, honestly, some of the trailer stuff for Need for Speed kind of turned me off, where it was Fast and the Furious over everything else, and I never really cared for those movies.
I liked those movies, but because they're dumb and fun. But
considering the gameplay that they showed, it kept interrupting the game for cutscenes constantly.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted to show?
The cutscenes? Yeah, because the rest of the game is garbage.
No, it's a slot machine. Even though EA in no way intended to build a slot machine.
There you go, sliding that one in there too. Yeah, I don't... There's some big titles that we'll see what they do. And if they don't have loot boxes at all, if they take the games back and redesign them and pull loot boxes out, I'll declare that we've won the battle.
But not the war.
But not the war, because as Jim Sterling pointed out, and has pointed out a number of times in other videos discussing this, they'll do this. They'll push the envelope too far, and then they'll reel it back and say, oh, see, DLC and microtransactions and season passes, not so bad now, right? But
It just
the
makes me
backlash
wonder-
for this has
It
been
just makes me wonder
much
what would
larger.
they have to do in order to make loot boxes seem acceptable.
I don't know. Actual literal put the actual game in loot boxes. Oh, but that would be loot boxes though. That would just make loot boxes worse. But that would make old loot boxes seem fine. It's like if you buy loot boxes to try and get parts of a game,
Ah, crap. I got level 3 again.
that would make old loot boxes seem better by comparison. But
I mean, you can't
Yeah.
even say you put weapons in them because, Battlefront essentially did that with their abilities.
yeah. I
I just wonder
I
if
don't
we're
know
going to see
what's-
some major titles get delayed because they had loot boxes in them. Yeah, but
I would say we will. Because this loot box thing has drug out a lot longer than previous outcries against microtransactions and DLCs
it got a
season
lot bigger
passes
with the government getting in.
Yeah. Yeah, this might be the
Yeah,
one.
this is the
I don't
one
know.
that may have woken the sleeping giant. It's like regulation.
This may at least be the line in the sand. I'd love to get rid of a lot of the other bullshit mechanics, but if this is the line in the sand that everyone draws and says, "Nope, we're not having
This far,
any
no
more of
farther.
this shit," yeah. Oh,
What?
good old Star Trek. But yeah, if that's the line in the sand, I think I could live with that. I think. Because then at least,
It really depends on how far we back away from
I don't
it.
know. Yeah, it really depends. I would be open. See, I'm open to buying games that have microtransactions in them way after the fact when they're super cheap. But on no uncertain terms will I buy a game brand new that has them. But I won't buy a game that has loot boxes in it at all. Period.
Yeah, well, the problem is that games are putting in loot boxes after the fact. I mean, look at Rocket League.
That's true. I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. If they do it after the fact, then that sucks, and I'll be pissed off about it, but there's not much I can do. Because, I mean, I could try as hard as I wanted to refund. You put microtransactions in, but with current laws and everything, I really don't have anything that I can do. At least in the States, I don't know. You might be able to do something about that if you lived in Europe, for example, but not here. I'd be fucked.
Well, you're saying the United States has poor customer protection?
Yes, that's literally exactly what I'm saying. No, allegedly. Come at me. Fight me, United States government.
Can't hear you firing
Fight me.
firing the head of the FBI.
Firing missiles from drones into Syria.
Let's attack North Korea.
It's a terrible thing to joke about, but mark my words, it's going to happen. To try and deflect from all of the crazy political stuff. It's going to fucking happen.
Well, he's been wanting to start a war, ever since he got into office. And, he's just moving the troops around, seeing how it feels.
Just like when he got in that big rig. And the fire truck. But anyways, let's not head down that rabbit
let's
hole.
talk about a game that feels like it's from about 10 or 15 years ago.
Indeed. Marvel's new Spider-Man game will let you unlock pre-order suits in-game and some other things from previous headlines. It's not going to have microtransactions. What was the other thing?
It's going to have a traditional DLC model, isn't it? It's going to have expansions.
Yeah, I believe that's it.
And they specifically said no loot boxes.
Now, granted, game companies have lied about that
true.
before, particularly Ubisoft with Watch Dogs.
What? Ubisoft lies?
And-
No.
And PUBG lied about loot boxes. They said they weren't going to have them, and then they put them in.
No, they lied about not having loot boxes during early access.
Oh, okay.
See,
then
they
they
were
had them.
scummy bastards, but they are a particular type of scummy bastard. Allegedly.
But yeah, if they stay true to their word on all of these things, we're going to get a real game. A real game based on Spider-Man. And I've heard that the web-swinging mechanics, which is everyone's favorite thing to talk about from the Spider-Man, for this game are really good. potentially on par with Spider-Man 2, which was what everyone says was the best.
Well, you should say console Spider-Man 2 because Spider-Man on PC, Spider-Man 2, was shit. But it was nowhere near the same game. It was completely different.
So, okay. But, I mean, I
have to admit that
really
one thing I saw about this game and made me kind of wish I had a PlayStation to play it. Did you see the video of the fast travel?
No.
Okay. He swings in, goes into the subway, and then it has a cutscene while it's doing the loading in the next area because it's stream loading everything. Of him sitting on the subway, poking around on his phone in the Spider-Man suit.
That's very
old
new Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, I would say it's like the second. Was it the second or the first? I think it was the second. The Tobey Maguire Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's, where he's in the elevator, completely playing off that he's in an elevator, talking about rides up in the crotch a little, but it's all right.
Yeah, that idea of playing on the phone is directly from Spider-Man Homecoming. I don't think he's riding on a train while he's playing on his phone, but he's like hanging upside down and doing Spider-Man stuff while he's playing on his phone. So I would assume that that's pulled pretty much wholesale.
Yeah, I do need to see Spider-Man
from the movie.
Homecoming.
It's really good. It's a really good high school, like teenage high school.
Yeah, but it's not the origin story.
Comedy. No, it's not the origin story.
Thankfully. Now, how many times do we need to retell Spider-Man's origin?
I haven't seen Homecoming since it was in theaters. I need to watch it again because Infinity War comes out in 2 weeks also. But I don't think that they mentioned Uncle Ben at all. I think they just take it as everyone understands what Spider-Man's origin story is. He might at one point be like he misses him, and Aunt May's like, I know we all miss him, but it's okay.
And now I'm
just kind of hand wave.
Now I'm going back to Weird Al's Ode to a Superhero. Talking about the Uncle Ben line, and you'll hear it again and again and again. It's a parody of Piano Man.
I've never heard that before. I should listen to that.
Oh, it's very good.
Yeah, Spider-Man and Batman and Superman, everyone knows their origin story, but yet we've seen, particularly Batman, his origin story a million times.
Granted, sometimes it makes sense to retell it if they're changing up the world enough. The Nolan Batmans, I could understand doing the origin story again. Because it makes sense to have that background with the characters. But then you don't need it for some others. I think some superheroes are in the public consciousness enough that you don't need to tell their origins.
Yeah. Fun fact. Uncle Ben is the only comic book character in history, at least at time of recording, that has never been revived or resurrected or anything. While the origin story has been retold and he pops up in the origin story, he always dies and has never came back after that. And he's literally the only character in Marvel and DC Comics that's ever happened to.
I'm not sure if
everyone else
sucks or doesn't
come back to life
to be Uncle Ben. I remember the Spider-Man animated series in the 90s. They actually go to an alternate dimension where he lived. So, depending on if that's considered canon or not. But it was essentially a alternate Spider-Man that, if memory serves correctly, he bonded with the Carnage symbiote and went slightly insane and wanted to destroy all reality because, it was a Saturday. And in that reality, he didn't really have Uncle Ben to kind of ground him. So he still lost Uncle Ben, but I don't think he was as close. Or just the insanity from the symbiote. Because Carnage was the less stable of the two major symbiotes. Granted, low bar. but they actually had to go to another reality where Uncle Ben wasn't killed and bring him in to try to talk him down.
Yeah, I don't know how canon the cartoons and stuff are. Although comic book canon is weird, and it gets like reset and retconned all the damn time.
Yeah, it's like a drinking bird hitting F5.
So,
comic.
Yep, there's your little fun fact.
Are just really tough to follow if you're not following them already.
Yeah,
I mean the total universe reset on DC a while back was probably the best time to get in. But it's been several years now. It's already
Marvel
convoluted.
Comics. Yeah, in general, Marvel Comics are a lot easier to get into than DC Comics from a canonicity standpoint, because Marvel Comics use it's built into the world that they have this sort of sliding time scale. So it's like whenever something is mentioned, instead of having to be like, oh my god, when or where did this happen? It's basically just like, it was a few years ago that it happened. Which sometimes that can be weird, but it does make it easier to jump in because you don't have to be like, okay, in 1968, in issue whatever, there was this thing that happened, and then it worked out this way going forward. Everyone just sort of hand waves like, oh, it happened a few years ago.
Yeah,
don't worry about it.
For a while, I tried to keep up with one of the Batman DC lines, but they started referencing other comics, and I'm talking runs of 20 some comics. It's like,
yeah.
Fuck it.
Marvel in the last couple of years too has gotten into this thing where they do basically an 8 comic series that is not necessarily a one-off, like it connects to the overall story that they do for like their big event comics, but you can just pick any series and start from the beginning, and you've got 8 issues. And that's it. Like, everything you need to know is contained within those 8 issues. And then if you know other stuff, like you can see Easter eggs and stuff like that.
Some late breaking news.
Okay.
So let's anything else you want to talk about Spider-Man?
No, I'm done. I was talking about Marvel Comics.
Okay, well, this just broke 2 hours ago and I missed it. Did you see about Valve changing the privacy settings?
No.
Okay, Valve has essentially added additional privacy settings to Steam profiles. I'll have to go dig that up. Steam Spy is stating that they'll no longer be able to operate because of it. Which, considering we just was talking about Steam Spy being one of the few ways of getting PC numbers. Here, I'll drop it in the show notes, the profile changes. There's a good place, I think. Yeah. So there you go. I'll read the Steam Spy is just a tweet. Valve just made a change to their privacy settings, making games owned by Steam users hidden by default. Steam Spy relied on this information to be visible by default and won't be able to operate anymore. And then they link to the Steam blog, which says, today's update expands your profile privacy settings, giving you more control over privacy of your account. With more detailed descriptions on what a profile information is included in each category, you'll be able to manage how you are viewed by your friends or the wider Steam community. You can now select to view your profile's game details, which includes a list of games you purchased or wishlist, along with achievements and playtime. This setting also controls whether you're seen as in-game and the title of your game that you are playing. Additionally, regarding which settings you choose on your profile details, you can now have the option to keep your total gameplay private. You no longer need to nervously laugh it off as a bug when your friends notice that you have 4,000 hours played on Ricochet. Looking ahead a little, we also are working on a new invisible mode in addition to the already existing online, away, and offline presence options. If you choose to set yourself invisible, you'll appear as offline, but you'll still be able to view your friends list, send and receive messages, and so on. Sometimes you're feeling social, sometimes you're not. That setting should help Steam users be social on their own terms. We hope that this feature will be ready for beta release soon. Trademark. Okay, no trademark, but editorializing a little. Like many features, these privacy options have come directly from the user feedback. We would like you to join in this conversation. As always, we welcome you to visit Steam discussions and add your feedback. So this explains why Steam Charts has not been showing some info lately as well. But yeah, that's some late-breaking shit. I'm not sure how I feel about this, especially losing Steam Spy over it.
Losing Steam Spy sucks, and that's probably what's got me going. I don't know if this is a good thing or not. In general, I would say people having more control over their profile.
Especially hiding some shameful things. Granted, you don't know much about that.
I mean, I don't hide anything shameful, because I don't have any shame. I mean, everything in my profile was set to public anyways. I don't have any personally identifying information on here. And otherwise, I don't give a shit if people see what games I've played and how long I've played them. The invisible mode sounds kind of neat. I mean, occasionally when I'm feeling
turtleish,
I'll go to offline mode, and that's fine. But occasionally, I might be in offline mode and not want lots of people to talk to me, but I might want to poke you and say something, and then I'd have to go online.
Or you just text me.
So that's nice. But, you know, for you, I have your phone number and Twitter and everything, so I could just text you. But, you know, I think that's a nifty feature. I like that. But otherwise, yeah.
According to this,
no
it's more because of the default settings, because it looks like the default is setting it to private mode. Let me go check my Steam profile. Oh yeah. Okay, so it shows my. I haven't touched these settings at all. My profile is set to public. Game details is set to friends only, though.
Yeah, my game details were set to friends only as well. When I changed it to public, but they were set to friends only.
So that is the bugbear for Steam Spy right there. So it's not the settings in general; it's the default settings. So maybe this could be fixed in the future, but right now Steam Spy is in some severe trouble. And this is kind of Valve's hands-off modular development kind of biting them in the ass again. Because this is something that most companies would have this be public as default and have it an opt-in system, not an opt-out system.
Yeah. This is probably partially in response to Facebook. All this stuff going on with Facebook and data collection. This is probably a response to that. Maybe they've been working on some of this stuff in the background.
Especially that invisible mode.
But like this sudden, I mean, this feels very knee-jerk, like out of nowhere. Oh, by the way, we changed the privacy settings and we set some of your stuff to private by default. Bye. Like that's how this feels. And again, in general, I think it's good for people to have more options to control what information is publicly available online. But the way this is implemented is going to cripple, if not completely wipe out, Steam Spy, which is an incredibly useful tool which helps us track, at least in some manner, some stuff that's going on in game sales.
Yeah, and I've been seeing issues with Steam charts as well, so this may hit the games that aren't in the top 100 as well. Because I was wondering, just what the player count was on Radical Heights, but because I don't think it's in the top 100, so there's nothing on Steam charts.
Yeah.
So a good change implemented poorly. I think that's fair to say.
Yep.
Like right now, in order to get in the top 100 to show on the, the top games by current player count, which they may need to expand the top 100, you have to have 2,003 players. And actually, Radical Heights is on here at 6,500. That's what I was wanting to check, because I just wanted to see the player counts. but let's put it this way. Realm Grinder, Space Engineers, The Sims 3, Counter-Strike Source, Warface, and Company of Heroes 2 are the ones on the bubble at the low end of it. In that order, by the way, from 100 up. So, yeah, that's something I didn't even consider. I saw the news about the privacy thing, but didn't really consider, a newsworthy topic just because they added some options. Okay. We've talked about Steam adding stuff before, but not always. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. According to this, I'm on the Steam subreddit looking at the comments. Other websites that will not be able to operate or will have drastically reduced feature set because of this change. Allstat, Steam Gifts, Completionist.me, True Steam Achievements. This is just according to this one random guy, of course. Metagame Score, Steam Hunters, Exophase, Lorenzo Stanzo Filters, whatever that is. The Steam DB, Steam Trades, ArcStats, Steambot, Steam Time, Steam Tools, Steam Left, Steam Ladder, and probably hundreds more that they're not aware of. So, yeah. It's just that default setting. That's what's getting them. That's something that could easily be changed, but I imagine there would be a backlash changing the default setting now. Unless they have some sort of pop-up, because Steam does have the ability to do a pop-up properly. I'm just still going through the comments. Yeah, it's just such a... it's something I don't think they would thought of was a major thing. They thought they were doing by your favor.
Well, they didn't.
There's people saying, good, I never gave Steam Spotted permission to scrape my account anyway. Go fuck off, essentially. For lack of a better term.
Yeah. I'd prefer an opt-in system.
Yeah.
As opposed to opt-out.
Especially with, hitting this hard.
Yeah. Well, shit.
Yeah. Hopefully, they could work with Steam, because Steam Spot is a very important tool.
Yes, indeed. We'll see how this plays out, I guess, this week, and probably talk about it again next week, unless nothing happens.
Yeah, then we'll go, Steam Spy again?
Right. Well, that brings us to the end of the news segment of the show. I need to take
than what we expected, but that was an important news topic.
Yep. I need to take a quick break, and then we'll move on to Community Corner. We have made some adjustments to the show, which, given how I do the intro and the show notes, hopefully I can get that cut out and it doesn't sound weird. I may do a quick little primer for this episode, but we'll figure that out when we get there. Oh, come on,
we never sound weird.
Do we have anything for Community Corner other than what we were going to do, but then we cut for time reasons?
We have the crickets.
Sweet.
We also have, me saying, well, if you wish to actually have content in the Community Corner, you can email us vglpodcast@gmail.com or tweet us vglpodcast at the Twitters.
I will say that Kyle contacted me about doing something, although it would be more like its own segment as opposed to Community Corner. I think we haven't had a chance to sit down and really talk about it, but it's a good idea. It's actually a genuinely good idea, not like some silly, stupid thing.
Genuinely a good idea, or Kyle good idea?
No, genuinely a good idea. I really liked the idea. We're going to talk in the next couple of days more thoroughly about it. I don't know if he wants to keep what it is a surprise or what.
Well, considering I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So I'll find out. You may find out too. But anyways, 2 rhymes with do.
Doobly-doo.
And doobly-doo starts the discovery queue. So let's head that way.
And I have something interesting immediately.
You always do.
Well, I haven't wish list the entirety of Steam, so it's more focused on me.
I guess.
So I have Farm Manager 2018. Essentially a pseudo sim farm There are some people complaining about the AI not being great in this game, but this is a management game for a farm, not setting actually farming. Which is interesting because usually these farming games are you doing the farming, not managing the farm yourself. So, that's a interesting twist on things, going back to the old sim farm style of things. It's kind of surprising that we haven't seen something like sim farm in quite a while, now that I really think about it. Usually things fall more on the Harvest Moon side of things. But graphically, it doesn't look bad. I mean, it's not amazing, but it's also a management game. But, be able to hire farmhands, have them work the fields, hire the illegal immigrants to cut down costs.
Also,
it looks interesting. It's definitely on the wish list now.
Indeed. I have one. Crusaders of Light. This is a free-to-play MMO, but its thing is that it's cross-play, cross-platform between your PC and your mobile device, which sounds pretty interesting to me, because I've tried to find a few MMOs.
There's no way that's not World of Warcraft. That second screenshot, that looks like pulling into Dalaran.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
I mean, granted, the art style, is very reminiscent of WoW, but damn. I had flashbacks on, that second screenshot. It's like, pulling to Dalaran.
Yeah. But, I've tried to find several decent MMOs to play on my phone. And so I'll be checking this one out, because if it's the mobile version of it is at least enough where that I can, manage character stuff and do maybe like simple dailies or something like that, being able to do the more complicated stuff on PC is very appealing to me. So I think I'll be checking that out this week.
I got an interesting one. This released last week. Will to Live Online. This is, from the reviews of it, a MMO stalker game.
Okay.
I've piqued your interest, haven't I?
Yes, but just like what?
Stalker as in the old sandbox shooter.
Okay.
But yeah, this looks interesting. It doesn't look bad graphically. I mean, it's not amazing. There's some definitely low fidelity textures. But it's an MMO. And MMO shooters, they've not really done all that well. A lot of people talk about it being a janky Russian MMO with AI not being spectacular, and some translation problems, but it's worth a potential look. It's not that expensive, but I would love to know some player numbers for this before, really wanting to look more into it.
Yeah. So, calling back to something earlier in the show, Crusaders of Light, published by NetEase.
Oh boy. So, does that make you want to play it more? Or less?
Yes.
And
I was looking it up to make sure it was on the Play Store and not just an iOS only game.
A Sudoku game, really? Okay. We'll go with this, especially since my game I played earlier, Sid Meier's Railroads.
As in the older, the one that was like, what, 2011?
Yeah, this is in
like
4:3 resolution, and it has mixed reviews, I imagine, because of compatibility problems, but the fact that it's been on the Discovery queue.
Nice.
It abused me.
Alright, so here's one for me. Like, first, Robothorium, a roguelike
I believe there's an ointment for that.
RPG. I saw this on Keymailer the other night when I was doing a massive apply for. And it looks like a JRPG where you put together a squad of robots to lead the robot revolution, whatever that means. But it looks kind of cute, but at the same time, like, really simple, and I don't know, I just liked it. I liked everything about it. It releases like next month, so hopefully it's not too expensive. This looks like a good $5 to $10 game based on the looks, maybe 15 if it's a really lengthy RPG and doesn't really focus on the roguelike bit, having to restart repeatedly.
I have, once again, something very interesting. Masters of Amnesia. This is a take on the Pikmin from the looks of it.
Ooh, I like Pikmin.
I mean, just take a look at the trailer. That looks so Pikmin-ish on a fantasy setting. Pikmin in an ARPG, maybe dungeon crawler. Looks like it does have a online connection for activation, but that's it. So that is really interesting looking. Has no reviews whatsoever, which is a little troublesome, but it came out, well, technically now yesterday.
Well, that's probably why there's no reviews.
It doesn't look bad.
Masters of Anima. No, that looks pretty decent.
And this is why we had the Discovery queue. To find random shit. But yeah, I never really got to play Pikmin. I tried Overlord, but which is sort of Pikmin-ish, but it just triggered motion sickness for me.
Yeah, Pikmin, that mechanic is better in Pikmin than it is in Overlord.
But it's the same basic idea.
It's the same basic idea, but it's handled better in Pikmin, I think. Because they use it for a lot more puzzle solving as opposed to just straight up combat stuff. I know that you do it for some puzzle solving in Overlord. Okay.
The Discovery queue just gave me Big Pharma. I refunded Big Pharma because I didn't like it.
Nice.
I didn't have my big problem with Big Pharma, if you pardon the kind of phrase, was that it felt like you were doing the same thing over and over again. I was expecting some sort of like combination between things, but the gameplay of Big Pharma, you were constantly increasing the potency of various chemicals, and that was pretty much it. And it disappointed me. Disappointed me so much that it put me back on the Discovery queue. I'm not going to put it on my list, but I found it amusing. Enough to get a sensible chuckle. Or a sensible cackle.
That was definitely more than a chuckle.
Oh.
Alright, so I'm done with my queue.
One more. That's, yeah, me all over it. Ultimate Fishing Simulator. Doesn't look bad graphically, does it?
No.
I think
I had this one before, and I mentioned it to you.
I mean, it's a fishing game, so there's not a lot to talk about on it. It all comes down to the gameplay. But it looks like you have, your wall of fish. Not sure about it being $15, especially when you have Fishing Planet out there, which is actually a pretty good fishing game for free. It really depends on how they handle this and how far they are through early access, but if you like your fishing games, is this multiplayer? I don't see multiplayer on this. No, it does show online multiplayer. I mean, that's the big draw of these fishing games is, hanging around with friends, catching virtual fish and drinking virtual beer, right?
Speak for yourself on the virtual beer part. Actually, I'm not a big fan of beer.
All right, virtual root beer.
I'll drink wine. Or margaritas.
Take a train down to Margaritaville.
Why, Fishing Planet's a free-to-play fishing MMO.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever played Fishing Planet? Yeah. Okay.
That's why I mentioned it.
Maybe I should install Fishing Planet and we can go fishing
And,
together.
whenever I played it last, the multiplayer element was essentially a chat room. But supposedly they've added more to it since then. The annoying thing about Fishing Planet is that you rent everything. Or I can't remember. No. It wasn't rentals. You bought tickets to unlock various areas that you had a limited time in. But if you did well on them, you would get enough to easily make back your money and then some. But the first few areas were either very cheap or free. And there's also a lot of DLC for Fishing Planet. I mean, it's not a bad game. It's more on the realistic side of things, though. Or, realistic enough. So, you don't just cast down, reel back in and wait for the RNG to, say, oh, you got a fish. You actually have to work the lure. You have to work the shaft, Jared.
Well, I'm good at that.
So, yeah, that's my discovery queue done. And once again, I get a bunch more games than you.
Yeah, I got 2.
Yeah, and even ignoring, me just putting Sid Meier's Railroads on it just because of the game I played this week. I got some actually good ones.
Yeah, Sid Meier's Railroads is good if you don't have a Windows 10 PC. If you have a Windows 10 PC, good luck getting it working. But it still plays fine on Windows 7 machines and Windows 8 machines. But it's a fun game, even though it's more than 10 years old now. 12 years old. But anyways, now with that out of the way, we move on to the portion of the podcast where I go first. And once again, because I had my in-laws here, I didn't get shit done this weekend, at least related to my YouTube channel. Aside from Divinity, which will release on Wednesday and Saturday, and those are scheduled already. I didn't forget this time. So
I thought it was funny because I was a little concerned that I screwed up. It's like, no, wait,
it was me.
It was you.
When it comes to scheduling, it's usually me. But anyways, aside from those 2 things and the podcast, I don't have anything planned for this week. So, hooray! But if you want to find what I do have already, you can do so by searching for Gaming Psychologist on the YouTubes. If you want to follow me on Twitter, where you can see me tweet about all kinds of things. This week, apparently, I attracted the favor of the trans community on Twitter, so that was pretty cool. I can't imagine being like a celebrity or an internet famous person, because I'm up to like 1,000 notifications.
That's when you just
my
turn
notification screen is a mess. It's just a mess. So, yeah, I'll enjoy my 15 minutes of fame, I guess. But yeah, at JMA4707 on Twitter. And I have a Twitch channel where I stream things and I post
we're
things
on there right now.
using their Premiere system over at twitch.tv/jarthur4707. You never know what I'm going to be running. You can have over my channel at pretty much any time, and there's a chance there'll be some content playing over there. I also rehost several members of our community and one of our pseudo partners, Left Stick Down, which is the site that I used to write reviews for. Still good friends with those guys over there.
Yeah, I may have to bonk them in the head with a frying pan. Or sorry, an iconic frying pan.
Yeah, eventually we might do, I don't know, a crossover thing of some kind, but they operate during the day and we operate during the nighttime, so that makes it difficult. And then if you want to be my friend on Steam, you can do so by sending a friend request to jarthur4707. I accept all friends on Steam because I expect them to be the lovely people from our lovely podcast. And everyone who's ever sent me a friend request from the podcast has indeed been lovely. And all of my profile information is set to public, so you can find me easily.
Oh, wow. But if you wish to let them know exactly what episode of the podcast you're coming from, the passphrase for this week is mistaken identity. Mistaken identity. For both of us and PUBG.
What about you, buddy? What have you got going on?
Short of the Sunday Sampler, things are still doing fairly well. SteamWorld Dig 2 is, digging down, digging deep, getting completely lost, and hitting some new themes on the world, which, has made things very interesting. A little bit more platformy, but overall not bad so far. But we'll have to see how things go. I'm going to be doing another recording session of that probably tomorrow night. But yeah, I've been enjoying SteamWorld Dig 2. And, that's why I record it. And also why I have way too many episodes of RimWorld. Another wallop. Let's put it this way. Weird shit goes down in that game. Such as giraffes beating the ever-living hell out of this mechanical death machine. Essentially this giant tank. It triggered a psychic wave that drove a manhunter. And whatever it goes manhunter, it goes after the nearest thing that it's aggro to. And that just happened to be the tank that triggered the psychic wave to begin with. So about a little under half a dozen giraffes just ran up and beat the shit out of two just giant mechanoids. Oh, I love RimWorld. RimWorld is Dwarf Fortress Light. Half the calories, but still all the flavor. And Divinity is still ongoing. We're going to have to sit down and do some major recording on that, either this week or next, though. Agreed?
Agreed.
But yeah, that's still ongoing as well. Our complete and utter nonsense and getting completely lost and me figuring out something because I accidentally saw a hint in the upcoming episodes. But, that's pretty much how things go for Divinity. That's mostly due to us playing it 2 hours once a week, maybe. So we forget things very easily. Maybe we should have taken notes. Nah, that would have been professional. And besides, YouTube has said we're not professional. We don't get money for this. Bastards. But Sunday Sampler should be returning this week, assuming I get something, because it's been a very light week on review code, and I'm just now starting to do channel assets. I planned to do them over the weekend once I realized I was too tired to mess with all the stuff for the Sunday Sampler, which does require a fair amount of work, either Friday or Saturday or both. But I just couldn't get it to look how I wanted. You know how it is, right? Oh wait, that requires too much effort, right?
Indeed, too much effort. Way too much effort. It's fine.
But yeah, I'm working on some new channel assets for a few things, particularly additional things for the Sunday Sampler, so it's not always just quick looks. Even though I have to admit, I do like the quick looks. Because, it always introduces me to weird things. And sometimes we just fist buildings with giant mechs. While delivering pizza.
And that's all right in my book.
With pizza or without pizza? Does it have to have pizza?
It doesn't have to have pizza, but pizza is a bonus.
Okay, just making sure. But yeah, all that is over at Gaming with Caffeine Rage. And on the Twitter, Gaming with CR, I was talking about notes on my frozen pretzels. I saw that last time I nuked the pretzel just because I was feeling too lazy to fire up the oven. And saw on the packet of salt, no, do not use entire packet of salt if not heating the entire box of pretzels. And it just made me wonder what's worse, the fact that note exists or it needed to exist. But then just above it says, salt to taste. So what if you just want all the salt in the world?
That's probably to just protect them from a lawsuit.
I would say, how would you sue over too much salt on your pretzel? But then we've had PUBG. And we've seen they have way too much salt on their pretzel. Huh?
Haha.
But yeah, that is the Twitter. So my just random nonsense. But if you wish to send us your random nonsense, you can send it vglpodcast@gmail.com or just tweet it to us, VGL Podcast on Twitter. Your voicemails, your letters, your game-related topics, your questions, your just random donations, though, could go to patreon.com/VGL Podcast, which help pay for our Podbean account. VGLpodcast.podbean.com, which has the RSS feed, our show notes, but you can also find our podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever Jared stuck us, if you're not listening to us on a pod-catching service already. Our intro and outro music is On the Ground by Kevin McLeod, and Doobly Doo is our Discovery Cue music by the same artist. His work can be found at Incompetech.com, and save me from me tripping over my tongue anymore.
As always, as his lovely music starts to roll across my voice.
You sound very uncertain about that.
I just decided to roll with it. I wasn't sure where to start, but I just went with it. Bye-bye. I would say I'll edit it, but we know I won't do that.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a certain level of just pure involvement that you have with this.
Oh, my back just popped, and that was wonderful. I don't know if the mic picked it up or not, but it was a really satisfying, like, crunch.
I didn't hear it, but you always edit it in. Oh, wait, that's beyond your effort, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd take too much effort. I have to re-record it or spend 2 minutes searching online for a back popping sound. Probably like an ASMR video.
I never really got ASMR. I've watched some of it, but some of it just comes across as fucking creepy. Am I just watching the wrong ones?
No, I don't get ASMR videos either. Either they annoy me or they're creepy.
Being soft-spoken and they're not really editing out crinkling is one thing, but the deliberate, over-the-top ASMR just comes across as so fucking creepy. Then again, a couple of the channels I watch could be considered ASMR, but I'm not watching them for the tinkles or the feels or the whatever. So I don't know.